Chapter 38-24. Phew, Brother Ling, you're finally here again. Haha, I thought you were dead. I was worried for nothing. As soon as he connected to the Holy Land's network, Ling Han immediately received several messages. Are you all alright? Ling Han asked. Sai, we're in trouble. Including you, there are only 5 of us left, Yuan Tian said. Only half of them were left. Ling Han sighed, but thinking about how dangerous the situation was, it was already good that half of them survived. Are you all together now? He asked. Yes, after avoiding the barbaric bull tide, we've been together again. You're the only one left now. Alright, I'll be right there. The connector actually had many functions. As long as the map was brought up, it would show the location of the team members. It was very convenient. Therefore, all Ling Han had to do was head in that direction. He used his movement technique and moved very quickly. After half a day, he found Wuxia and the other 3. Each of them had more or less some injuries, which was enough to prove how terrifying the beast tide was. Although they had only been separated for 2 days, everyone felt like they had been reborn, and they were closer to each other. The 5 who had been eliminated were the weakest among them. Yuan Tian, Wuxia, Huang Lingyun, and Mu Long were still standing, but Luo Shan, Ma Gang, and the others had been eliminated, and no one knew if they were still alive. Let's continue. They moved forward and began hunting again. On the afternoon of the 9th day, everyone received a message. Now, I'll announce the score and remaining members of each team. Every 10 minutes, I'll also show everyone's location on the map. As expected, a notice board appeared in the Holy Land's network through the connector, listing the score and remaining members of each team. Ling Han's team was in first place, with a total of 752 points. On average, everyone had a little more than 150 points. The second-place team also had 684 points, but 6 people were still in the team, so the average score was even lower. The team in third place had exactly 600 points, but they only had 4 people, so on average, each person's score would be 150 points, second only to Ling Han's team. Perhaps it would only be a matter of killing one more ferocious beast. With such intuition, everyone only needed to do a slight calculation to know which teams would be eliminated and which teams would advance into the top 100. More importantly, everyone's position appeared on the map almost instantaneously. It was basically saying, come on, kill this group of people, and we'll be able to squeeze into the top 100. There was a lot of gambling involved in this. Eliminating the members of the enemy team might not necessarily allow one to squeeze into the top 100. This was because as long as the enemy team had more than 3 members, everyone's average score would be higher, even if there was one less member. They could eliminate other teams, or they could eliminate their own people. They could also continue hunting dire beasts. There were many options. This time, a great battle is unavoidable. Ling Han shook his head, but he was not afraid at all. He was already at the 4 Cauldron realm, and his battle prowess was at least equal to that of a 7 Cauldron realm martial artist. Their team was first in terms of overall score and average score, so they naturally had the initiative to continue hunting dire beasts to maintain their lead. But among the other teams, the slaughter had already begun. It was clear from the leaderboard that a team would disappear from time to time, while some teams' numbers would decrease sharply, and the individual rankings would immediately change. That night, Ling Han and the others were planning to find a place to rest when they heard Huang Lingyun say, "Not good. There are many people heading our way." They could see that there were many points on the map very close to them, and these points were very densely packed. They were clearly in cahoots. A quick count showed that there were as many as 30 of them. This was clearly not just one team. Haha, how dare they have designs on us? We'll make sure they never return. Yuan Tian laughed. The flames of posturing were already burning. Wu Qiyuan only clenched his fists and did not speak. He was a simple person. He only had one word for it, fight. Ling Han was even more nonchalant. He was unperturbed, as if he had not heard at all. Seeing that the 3 generals were like this, Huang Lingyun was naturally relieved. After a while, silhouettes appeared from all directions, forming a circle and surrounding them. Hand over the connecting device. The other side did not waste words. With such a good opportunity, how could Yuan Tian not show off? He strode out, incomparably flamboyant. You want the connecting device? Fine, but who can take 3 moves from me? I'll think about it. Ha ha ha. Many people began to laugh. Idiot. We know that your team is amazing and has the highest score. Who would want to fight you one-on-one? Damn, his posturing had failed. Yuan Tian's embarrassment turned to anger. Was it easy for him to show off? Why was it always being foiled? I'll beat you all to death, he roared, taking the initiative to attack. You're courting death. Those people immediately attacked, suppressing Yuan Tian. However, 4 cauldrons was still 4 cauldrons. This had broken the limit, so how could it be ordinary? The 4 cauldrons obtained through cultivation were different from the 4 cauldrons obtained through cultivation. The 4 cauldrons obtained through cultivation were 4 cauldrons, but the 4 cauldrons obtained through cultivation could reach 5 cauldrons of power, or even more. Yuan Tian's combat strength was close to 5 cauldrons, 2 minor realms higher than ordinary heavenly cauldrons. This made him like a tiger in a pack of wolves, able to do as he pleased. But a pack of wolves was still a pack of wolves. They were not defenseless sheep. Some of the 30 people were in charge of restraining Yuan Tian, while others launched powerful attacks from behind. This put a great deal of pressure on Yuan Tian. After all, those who could participate in the competition were all extraordinary, and those who had lasted until now were even more so. Before long, Yuan Tian was already stretched to the limit and cut a sorry figure. I'm coming. Wu Yuan roared and charged into the fray. He was a brute, and he charged forward, taking in all the attacks that came his way. His powerful physique could dissolve most of them, and then he launched a fierce counterattack that left his opponents unable to dodge. However, 2 fierce tigers still weren't enough to suppress this pack of wolves. Huang Lingyun and Mu Long also entered the fray. Although they were ranked in the top 10,000 of the star web, in the current situation, their strength couldn't be considered strong at all. They could just barely protect themselves. Ling Han didn't take action. He just watched from the side. Kid, you seem to be very free. Someone stared at him. Ling Han smiled. You'd best not provoke me. So what if I provoke you? That person didn't believe him, and walked over to Ling Han. Ling Han sighed and slapped out with his palm. Bang! That person's clothes, including their connectors, were all turned to dust. Just like that. Chapter 38-25. A single palm strike had eliminated 1 person. That person was not injured, but he was instantly turned into a naked pig, which naturally made him extremely angry and embarrassed. However, he did not dare to make a move. This palm strike didn't injure him in the slightest, only shattering his clothes and connectors. The difficulty was several times higher than killing him. How would he dare to provoke such an expert? He quickly covered his crotch with his hand and quickly retreated. Hiss, so this guy is the core of the team. The alliance of 30 people all looked over. That palm strike just now was enough to prove how terrifying Ling Han was. Let's attack together and get rid of him first. Alright. 20 of them immediately rushed over, while the remaining 9 entangled Yuan Tian and the others, not giving them a chance to support Ling Han. But does it work? Ling Han looked casual, but with every punch, a person would explode into a pig. After 10 punches, half of them had already exposed their white buttocks. This time no one dared to make a move. He was too strong, to the point of being abnormal. Run! The remaining people all took to their heels and fled. However, since Ling Han had already made his move, how could he allow anyone to escape? He activated so close, yet worlds apart, and every time he caught up to them, he would add another punch. After another 10 punches, the remaining 10 people also became naked pigs. When he turned around, Yuan Tian and the others also displayed their might, suppressing their opponents. At this point, the 30-man team was completely annihilated. They opened the map and saw that there was originally a dot of light that was approaching them, but now it was far away. Obviously, although these people couldn't see what had happened, they could guess what had happened when the 30 dots of light quickly disappeared. The 5 people here were too strong. They were outnumbered and defeated their opponents. The first-ranked team was indeed powerful. It was better not to provoke them. After the night, there was only 1 day left for the competition. Ling Han and the others continued to hunt. On the way, they met a team of 4 people led by Lin Qi. But the two sides just met face to face and did not fight. In the afternoon, they even met Jiangqiu's team. This beauty actually had as many as 15 people by her side. Clearly, they were not from the same team, but because of her, they had gathered together. The power of a beautiful woman could not be underestimated, especially someone like her. There was probably only one in tens of thousands of galaxies who could make it onto the beauty list. The closer it was to the end of the competition, the more intense the infighting became. From time to time, teams would disappear, and teams would suddenly change from 6, 5, 4 to 3. As a result, the ranking of the teams changed very quickly, and the individual rankings changed even more rapidly. However, when the sun disappeared from the horizon, it meant the end of the competition. They received a notice that everyone was to gather at a place where there was a teleportation array to leave. After walking for half a day, Ling Han's group of 5 arrived at a simple campsite. However, there was an ancient mirror floating in the air. From time to time, a beam of light would flash past, emitting a chilling aura. Although vicious beasts had no intelligence, they would instinctively seek fortune and avoid danger, so they would naturally stay far away from this camp. Many people had already returned. There was no lack of people who had been eliminated midway, or had lost their connection devices. They had all been sent here by the people of the 9 Sun Sacred Ground. This time, they were not teleported in groups of 10, but in groups of 100. In a short while, everyone left the brutal violent planet and appeared in the 9 Sun Sacred Ground again. Those who had been eliminated early naturally left dejectedly, and even those who had persisted until the end of the competition would most of them be eliminated. The people of the Sacred Ground began to tally the scores, and then listed the top 100 according to the individual rankings. In fact, it was not only 100, but 103 because the final 4 people's scores were the same. Then they would relax a little and take all of them. There were 103 on the cauldron forging side, and 102 on the foundation building tier side, for a total of 205. For a sacred ground, such a number was not at all high. Even if it was the same for the next 9 years, there would only be a total of over 2,000 people, which could be said to be quite shabby. The Empress and the others passed smoothly, although their rankings were not the highest. Those who passed had entered the real 9 Sun Sacred Ground. The Foundation Building Tier disciples lived in the Foundation Building Valley, and the Cauldron Forging Tier disciples lived in the Cauldron Mountain. In the future, when they entered the Life Core realm, they would move to the Life Core Sea. From the True Self realm, they were qualified to live in the Sacred Palace. As the 9 Sun Sacred Ground only opened its doors to accept disciples once every 10,000 years, the gap in cultivation was very obvious. Those who could live for more than 10,000 years had to be at the True Self realm. There were very few in the True Self realm, because True Self realm cultivators could live for 10,000 years at most. Those who could live for such a long time were basically extremely lucky and ate holy medicine that could prolong their life. However, it was not that there were no foundation building, cauldron forging, or even life core disciples in the sacred ground. This was because some elders would also accept a few disciples in private. Some of them were Tao children by their side. After receiving guidance, after a long time, a few naturally embarked on the path of cultivation. Because they had just entered the sacred ground, everyone behaved very low-key. In the sacred ground, everyone used the sacred ground's special connection device and had internal use of contribution points. To put it bluntly, they were universe dollars. However, they could not use Tao stones to top up. Instead, they had to make actual contributions to the sacred ground in order to obtain contribution points. These contribution points included achievements in martial art or glory won for the sect. There were quite a lot of ways to earn contribution points. Ling Han learned in detail that the 9 Sun Sacred Ground did not have a sacred lord. There was only a substitute sacred lord. Why? This was a rule set by the 9 Sun Saint back then. The 9 Sun Saint's proud ultimate technique was the 9 Sun Finger. Back then, he was almost invincible in the world. After he failed to compete for the position of ancestral monarch, he devoted himself to research and cultivated an even stronger ultimate technique called the god-slaying art. However, the god-slaying art did not leave behind a cultivation technique. Instead, it was hidden by the Nine Sun Saint somewhere. Whoever could find the god-slaying art and learn it would become the sacred lord of the Nine Sun Sacred Ground. Why did the Nine Sun Sacred Ground recruit so few disciples? It did not match the status of a sacred ground at all. This was also a rule set by the Nine Sun Saint. The quality of the successor was not the quantity. It was just right for the limited resources to be gathered to nurture a powerful successor. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a disgrace to the Nine Sun Saint if they walked out? Ling Han felt that this saint was a bit extreme. That was because even those imperial clans did not have such rules. And there were no great emperors or ancestral kings that would hide their invincible techniques away, so that their descendants would spend all their effort to find them. In that case, was it easy to learn the Nine Sun Finger? It was difficult. This was because only the substitute Sacred Lord could learn it. In order to become the substitute Sacred Lord, one had to first become a Taoist, stand out from the 9 Taoists, and be the first to reach the supremacy realm. Then, one had to wait for the previous Sacred Lord to die, or resign before they could succeed. In that case, no matter how smooth it would still take tens of thousands of years. The current substitute Sacred Lord had only lived for more than 60,000 years, so he could at least live for another 20,000 years. Therefore, the fastest way to obtain a sage technique was to find the god-slaying art and become the Sacred Lord. The Nine Sun Finger was naturally in the bag. Chapter 38:26. Every generation of disciples, including elders and substitute sacred leaders, had been searching for the whereabouts of the god-slaying art. However, no one had succeeded in the past 100 million years. Who knew where the Nine Sun Sage had hidden this sacred technique? Some people even guessed that the Nine Sun Sage had not created this technique that was said to be comparable to an emperor technique. He had only boasted about it because of his pride. In order not to embarrass himself, he could only say that he had hidden the god-slaying art. Nearly 100 million years had passed. Ling Han naturally could not deduce which was real and which was fake. He would first believe that the god-slaying art really existed. In the sacred ground, there was a cultivation technique that could be cultivated directly. It was called the Earth Mystic Art, which was equivalent to the sect master level. Ordinary disciples could cultivate the sect master level cultivation technique. It showed how rich the sacred ground was. Above the Earth Mystic Art was the Heaven Mystic Art, which was equivalent to the supremacy level. However, the Heaven Mystic Art was not easy to obtain. It had to be exchanged with contribution points, and it could only be exchanged for techniques that did not exceed one's cultivation level. Above the Heaven Mystic Art was the Extreme Yang Meridian. This was a sage technique that only Taoists could cultivate. Other than that, the sacred ground had many secret techniques that could be exchanged with contribution points or tried one's luck. This was because one could pick up a stone by the side of the road and have a secret technique carved on it. Why did he do that? This was to encourage disciples to use their brains and find the god-slaying art. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh upon seeing this. The Saint of Nine Suns had ruined all of his future disciples. Therefore, in summary, there were 4 points: contribution points, luck, Taoists, and the god-slaying art. Everything would be settled if one found the god-slaying art. Otherwise, one could only use contribution points to exchange for it, or try one's luck, or obtain some cultivation techniques and secret techniques after becoming a Taoist. Evidently, it was too difficult to find the god-slaying art. Becoming a Taoist also required time. Therefore, what Ling Han could do now was try his luck or earn contribution points. Trying one's luck was not reliable. Earning contribution points was the most reliable way. Although Tao stones could not be exchanged for contribution points, it did not mean that other things could not be handed over. For example, elixirs. The level of elixirs was also the standard to measure a faction. If one had a lot of resources, but no alchemists could refine them into pills, it would be a huge waste. However, there were too many monks and not enough gruel. There would never be enough pills. Therefore, if they handed over the pills to the Holy Land, they would be able to exchange them for contribution points. Ling Han planned to start from there. He took a look. Between the foundation establishment and cauldron casting levels, the most expensive pills were the foundation transformation pill and the cauldron forging pill. What is the cauldron pill? After consuming it, it could form the core of an immortal cauldron and help the martial artists cultivate an immortal cauldron. Of course, it was only an aid and not a guarantee of success. This pill was extremely difficult to refine. Why, this was because the alchemist needed to have at least 4 cauldrons of cultivation in order to condense the core with their own immortal cauldron power. But how many alchemists are martial art geniuses? Dual cultivation of martial arts and alchemy was already very rare, but dual cultivation was naturally even more difficult. Ling Han smiled. Wasn't this just right for him? He couldn't refine the foundation transformation pill now, so he didn't plan to hand over the remaining foundation transformation pills. Who knew if Ling Shi and the others would give him grandchildren or great-grandchildren? Therefore, it was better to keep the foundation transformation pills. He didn't know how long it would take to wait for a second person who could refine the foundation transformation pill. The cauldron forging pill's pill recipe was also quite expensive. It sold for 5 million universe credits on the Star Web, but Ling Han still bought it. It was extremely practical and easy to sell. The buying and selling of things like pill recipes was done in real time. Ling Han had just paid the money, and the pill recipe had already appeared in his connecting device. He only needed to call it out to be able to check it out. Ling Han studied it carefully, then meditated and simulated it in his mind. After a few times, he had some confidence. He continued to buy materials and transported them through the teleportation array. He spent money like water. Sigh. First one and the others had become smarter. Otherwise, he would have collected tickets and made a lot of money. Forget it. It's all the same if I refine pills myself. After buying the ingredients, Ling Han shut himself in his room and concentrated on concocting alchemical pills. Empress, Lin Luo, and the others had the advantage in numbers, so they didn't have to worry about being treated unfairly. Therefore, Ling Han only needed to work hard to earn contribution points. Even though he was the alchemy emperor, Ling Han still failed many times when he first started. However, it only took 2 days for Ling Han to refine the first batch of cauldron forging pill. The first success meant that Ling Han couldn't fail again. Ling Han continued refining. Except for the half an hour of cultivation in the morning, he spent the rest of his time refining pills. 10 days later, he finally came out. He tidied himself up a bit, then went out and ran towards the Holy Palace. At the bottom of Cast Cauldron Mountain was a huge square. At one end of the square was the Holy Palace. There was a stone tablet in the middle of the square, which was surrounded by many people. What's so interesting about a blank stone tablet? Ling Han didn't understand. It wasn't like he hadn't seen this stone tablet when he entered the Holy Palace. It was blank and ordinary. Why was it surrounded by so many people? He walked over and heard the discussion of the crowd. Only then did he come to a realization. The stone tablet wasn't blank, but there were rows of names. What kind of ranking is this? Total contribution points. Is this to motivate one's competitive heart? Ling Han took a look. The first on the list was Gan Ping. He was a super genius ranked 188th on the Star Web, and his total contribution points were 206. The total contribution points didn't count consumption and represented one's contribution to the Holy Palace. As expected of Gan Ping, his talent is too terrifying. He only took 3 days to grasp the Dragon Spirit Sword technique. That's right. I haven't learned it yet. He's in the top 200 of the Star Web after all. He's indescribably monstrous. Everyone gasped in surprise, and Ling Han only found out after looking at the message on the connection device. It turned out that an elder had given a public lecture 7 days ago, imparting a set of Dragon Spirit Sword technique, and he had been so focused on concocting alchemical pills that he had turned off the connection device, so he had not received any news at all. Quickly learning a sword technique could also earn contribution points? Damn! Didn't they say that secret arts had to be exchanged for with contribution points, or found by luck? Ling Han couldn't help but feel that it was a pity. If he had known earlier, he would have gone. Forget it. He would hand over the cauldron heart elixir first. Ling Han walked past the plaza and arrived at the entrance of the palace. There were guards here, and anyone below the true self realm had to go through a report before entering. After knowing why Ling Han was here, the guard called for a comrade and asked him to bring Ling Han in to look for someone. The two of them quickly arrived at the elixir storage room. There was an elder sitting there calmly. Old Qin. The guard bowed respectfully. Why are you here to disturb me? The old man asked indifferently. This disciple wants to contribute an elixir. Oh, the old man didn't mind at all. What elixir? Cauldron heart elixir. What? The old man immediately stood up with a burning gaze. Chapter 38:28. Seeing this, Ling Han smiled. If Elder Yen is in a difficult position, then give me the original price. How could Yen Dong keep his face? Was he going back on his word to a junior? No need, just 100 contribution points each. He was someone who cared about his face. Thank you, Elder Yen. Ling Han hurriedly bowed. He was just pretending to be polite. Oh no, what am I doing? Yen Dong's mouth twitched. He wanted to slap himself. Ling Han had already given in. Why did he have to be so stubborn about his face? He reaped what he sowed. The old man felt uncomfortable. He waved his hand, indicating that Ling Han could leave. He wanted to be alone. The guard from before still led Ling Han out. His face was filled with envy, and he said, Elder Yen is famous for his iron mask. You can obtain Elder Yan's recognition. In the future, in the Holy Land, no one should dare to bully you. Ling Han smiled. Even without Yen Dong's protection, he wasn't afraid of anyone. When had Ling Han ever been afraid of someone at the same level? Ling Han was quite satisfied with this trip. He'd gotten 6,000 contribution points in one go. He could exchange them for some good things. He told the guard that he wanted to take a seat first. The guard didn't rush him. After all, this was Elder Yan's favorite. Ling Han opened the Sacred Lands connection device to search for the things he needed and could exchange for. He naturally ignored the medicinal pills. He could refine them himself. Using contribution points to exchange for them was stupid, but he still took a look. The price of the Cauldron Heart pill was actually 100 contribution points. Damn, so dark. Although Ling Han didn't lose anything, this was because Yen Dong had doubled the price. Normally it should be 50. However, other than requiring contribution points to exchange for the Cauldron Heart pill, there was also an explanation. That was, there was a limited quantity, and only 3 pills were available every month. If more than one person applied for it, the Holy Land would decide which 3 pills to give to, or even all of them to a single person. Forget it, he wouldn't look. Ling Han had found the heavenly treasures, and this was what he was concerned about. In his hands, the value of the heavenly treasures could be multiplied. 9 exquisite grass, amethyst heaven's heart stone, and yellow flower fruit were dazzling to the eyes, causing Ling Han to be incomparably conflicted. He wanted this, he wanted that, but he only had so many contribution points. Which one should he choose? If others knew about this, they would definitely be filled with envy and jealousy. Other people would have to save up for months, or even years to exchange for a single treasure, but you can choose a few. What else do you want? Ling Han wasn't in a hurry to make his move. He continued to check. Weren't there still cultivation techniques and immortal arts? Hiss. He only took a glance and then shook his head. This was because the contribution points required to exchange for cultivation techniques and celestial techniques was too high. Even the lowest one required 1,000 contribution points. Change? Of course not. How could a cultivation technique or secret technique that could be exchanged for 1,000 contribution points enter Ling Han's eyes? He looked at something else. Array. Ling Han quickly fixed his eyes on an array called the Three-Faced Aquarius Array. This was a Life Core class array. In theory, it could kill a Life Core realm martial artist, but it was very troublesome to set it up. It required the heaven and earth environment to meet the requirements in order to change the power of heaven and earth and form a great array to kill a Life Core realm martial artist. Ling Han decided to exchange for this, as it would become one of his trump cards in the future. If any Life Core Realm martial artist wanted to kill him, he would set up the three-faced Aquarius array, lure the opponent into the array, and refine them alive. He submitted the exchange request, and because he had enough contribution points, 5,300 contribution points were immediately deducted from him. All the information about this array formation also appeared in his connection device. Without reaching the rank of an elder, he couldn't transfer all the cultivation techniques, secret techniques, elixir recipes, and array formations that could be exchanged with contribution points. Otherwise, he would be punished for betraying the sacred ground. After exchanging, Ling Han set off once again and walked out of the palace. Previously, he wasn't in a hurry to leave, because if he wanted to exchange for the real thing, he would have to go to the sacred palace to get it, and he would have to make another trip. He left the palace, and he hadn't walked a few steps when he saw that the people who were originally surrounding the stone tablet in the plaza were all looking at him. They were all shocked. How could they not be shocked? This guy had obtained a total of 6,000 contribution points, leaving Gan Ping, who was in second place, far behind. Ling Han didn't care, and he walked with large strides. He still had to study the array formation. He didn't hand over all the cauldron heart pills, but left a portion for auction on the star web. Otherwise, he couldn't just sit around and eat them all, right? After the auction, he asked the large black dog to make a trip, and as usual, the Chang clan was responsible for the transportation. This gave him a large amount of universe coins, and Ling Han rented the time house to quickly master the three-faced Aquarius array. More than 10 days passed, and Ling Han walked out of the time house with a smile on his face. He had already thoroughly understood this array formation, and he could try to make the array foundation. He put on the Sacred Land connection device again, and found that many people were discussing the matter of his contribution points. Suddenly obtaining so many contribution points naturally attracted the curiosity of others, wondering if there was something fishy about it. And the Sacred Palace also explained that Ling Han had used the Cauldron Heart Pill to exchange for contribution points. Because it was his first time, and because the Cauldron Heart Pill was too precious and practical, they gave him double the contribution points. This was naturally Yin Dong's excuse. He couldn't say that he had cheated himself, could he? Many people expressed envy, but there were also some who made sarcastic remarks, such as Gan Ping, who said that alchemy was a minor path, and martial art was the true path. Which alchemist had become an ancestor king? Ling Han only chuckled. This was completely jealousy, and there was no need to take it to heart. However, everyone also guessed that Ling Han was definitely a genius alchemist, and had even formed 4 cauldrons, which was a prerequisite to concocting the Cauldron Heart Pill. For cauldrons, what kind of concept was that? Among the current caste cauldron martial artists, Ling Han's strength could be ranked in the top 1,000. Previously, Ling Han was in seclusion, but now that he came out, many people immediately came to visit him, trying to curry favor with him. It was mainly because of his alchemy prowess that he hoped Ling Han would be able to help them concoct the Cauldron Heart Pill. After all, it was far too difficult to use contribution points to exchange for the Cauldron Heart Pill. Even though Ling Han had easily obtained 6,000 contribution points, it would be extremely difficult for anyone else to obtain even a single contribution point. Master, Fairy Tan wishes to see you. A Dao child came to report to Ling Han. In the sacred ground, every disciple would be accompanied by a Dao child to handle some trivial matters. This Dao child of Ling Han's was called Mingyu. He was only 14 or 15 years old, and he had just broken through to the secret realm not long ago. Ling Han took a look at him, and saw that this half-grown child's face was full of admiration, and he looked as if his soul had left his body. Well, he must have been smitten by Tan Meng. She was indeed a stunner on the exceptional beauty list, and even such a young man had fallen for her. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. Please come in. Chapter 38-29. A Beautiful Romance. Mingyu hurriedly ran off to invite someone, and in a short while, there was the sound of jingling ornaments, and an exquisite beauty appeared in front of Ling Han. Even with Ling Han's picky eyes, he had to admit that this woman was indeed beautiful. beautiful to the point of being otherworldly and elegant, even more beautiful than the demon princess, second only to the empress and Hunyao. One had to know that she was only ranked 53rd on the exceptional beauty roll. If she was in the top 10, what kind of beauty would she have? Probably she would really be comparable to Hunyao and the empress. Ling Han sized up this seductive beauty with an appreciative gaze. She had a slender figure and was clearly exquisite and beautiful, but because her slender waist was barely bunched, it inevitably made both her breasts appear very voluptuous, adding a hint of charm. "Greetings, senior brother Ling," she smiled faintly, revealing a little bit of her pearly white teeth, looking very charming. Mingyu was already dumbfounded, her small face flushed red. Ling Han was only appreciative, and naturally wouldn't be flustered. He smiled faintly. "Greetings, junior sister." "Senior brother, are you disdainful of me? Not even inviting me to sit?" Tan Meng said faintly as if she had been mistreated, making one's heart melt. Ling Han stretched out his hand and said, "Please sit." Tan Meng finally broke into a smile. Instantly like 100 flowers blooming, beautiful beyond compare. She sat down in an incredibly elegant posture, and just looked at Ling Han quietly, not speaking. Ling Han sighed, and said, "Mingyu, don't look anymore, quickly go make some tea." Mingyu seemed to wake up from a dream, and hurriedly turned around. Pung, in her haste, she even bumped into a pillar. Thankfully, she didn't use any force, or the pillar would definitely break. Seeing this, Tan Meng couldn't help but cover her small mouth and laugh lightly. Ling Han shook his head. "Once junior sister comes, even I, a Dao attendant, can't do anything." "Senior brother Ling, are you saying that I'm a femme fatale?" Tan Meng asked with a smile. "I wouldn't dare." Tan Meng laughed again. "Senior apprentice brother, you are too modest. With your 4 cauldron cultivation, and your achievements in the Pill Dao, you are definitely in the top 3 among this batch of disciples. What is there to be afraid of?" Although the flattery was good, what had Ling Han been through? How could he be flattered so easily? He smiled. "If there's anything you want to say, just say it. Senior apprentice brother, what are you saying? Can't I come to see you if I have nothing to do?" laughed Tan Meng. "Sure." Ling Han nodded. "I'm a straightforward person. Why don't we go to the bedroom and be honest with each other?" The smile on Tan Meng's face immediately disappeared. She had never thought that Ling Han would be so direct. It was true that she saw Ling Han in a different light, but it was not in terms of a man or a woman. Instead, it was because she had taken a fancy to Ling Han's ability in alchemy that she wanted to use her personal charm to charm Ling Han. In her heart, the person who could be her son-in-law had to be in the top 100 of the star web. Although Ling Han had cultivated 4 cauldrons, that was all. He was at most in the top 700 of the star web, and he was still far from the top 100. "Senior apprentice brother Ling, you must be joking." Tan Meng forced a smile. "I never joke about this." Ling Han shook his head with a serious expression. Tan Meng was suddenly at a loss for words. She felt as if she had met a hooligan, and she was powerless to resist. Her beauty wasn't just for show. Her intelligence was also outstanding. Otherwise, wouldn't she be a pretty face and an idiot? However, when she encountered someone like Ling Han, who didn't walk the normal path, it was as if her emotional intelligence and intelligence had short-circuited. Fortunately, Mingyu just happened to send tea over. She hurriedly drank it while calming her emotions and sorting out her thoughts. She decided that she could not be polite anymore. Otherwise, she would be teased to death by Ling Han. "Senior apprentice brother Ling, actually, I did come this time to ask senior apprentice brother for help." Ling Han, on the other hand, sighed softly. "So you are still playing with me?" Tan Meng was instantly speechless. "Playing with you? Would I dare to play with you? It was clearly you who was teasing me." She finally understood that Ling Han did not treat her as a goddess or a fairy. He did not have any feelings for her. Otherwise, no man would speak to an interested lady like that. "I want to ask senior apprentice brother to help me refine a cauldron of moon elixir." She pretended not to hear Ling Han's words, and directly stated her purpose. "Moon elixir." Ling Han thought for a moment and said, "Oh." He did not know how to refine the moon elixir, but he had seen the introduction of this elixir before. It had nothing to do with cultivation, but it could increase one's charm. Temperament was something intangible, but it was said that the moon elixir could increase one's temperament and charm. It was obvious that Tan Meng was not satisfied with being the 52nd on the beauty rankings. She wanted to be the 40th, 30th, or even higher. For powerhouses, it was easy to tell whether or not they had changed their appearance. However, temperament was a different story. Ling Han laughed. I never refine pills for free. How about we go to the bedroom to talk? Tan Meng's expression immediately changed. Senior apprentice brother, don't joke around. I'm such a serious person. How could I joke about such a thing? Ling Han said solemnly. In the end, Tan Meng could not stand it any longer. After saying that her body was unwell, she hurriedly left. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. This woman clearly wanted him to refine pills for free. What a joke. He owed her. In her dreams. After leaving the room, Tan Meng's intelligence immediately went online. Not good, I've fallen into a trap. She immediately realized that something was wrong. If Ling Han really was such a pervert, how could he have cultivated to such a level? So he had deliberately used this method to chase her away. Although she had thought it through, Tan Meng was still filled with indignation. A beauty on the beauty rankings had actually been rejected by someone. This was too hurtful to her pride. No, she definitely could not take this lying down. It wasn't just Tan Meng. The other two beauties on the beauty rankings had also visited Ling Han. But they had no intention of asking Ling Han to refine pills for them. They simply thought that Ling Han was a talent worth roping in. In a short time, the news of the three beauties visiting Ling Han had spread like wildfire. Ling Han had instantly become the public enemy number one. Gan Ping and Lin Qi had publicly said that Ling Han was just an alchemist with mediocre strength. If he dared to fight with them, he would definitely lose within 10 moves. Ling Han couldn't help but ponder whether he should find these two to fight, and then collect entrance fees, to earn some contribution points. But contribution points couldn't be transferred. That was a problem. Ling Han had also said that if he wanted to fight, he would fight. But Gan Ping and Lin Qi had expressed that it was beneath them to fight with a weakling like Ling Han. Bullying an alchemist would only lower their status. Fuck. They were the ones who said they wanted to fight. But they were also the ones who said they didn't want to fight. Ling Han couldn't be bothered with them. He had bought the materials through the star web, and was going to create the foundation of the 3-aspect Aquarius array. This wasn't something that could be done in a day. He had painstakingly researched and destroyed many materials, but he still couldn't create the array foundation. He was very busy now. Aside from cultivating, he still had to refine pills and study formations. A few days later, he planned to go out for a walk and change his mood. Perhaps it would be helpful. After walking for a while, he suddenly had an epiphany. He sat down under a tree and was about to seize this epiphany. Pa! Something smashed down from above. He hurriedly dodged and raised his head to look. First, set a small goal for yourself. For example, bookmark. Chapter 3830. The 9 Sun Sacred Ground only recruited once every 10,000 years. Therefore, the appearance of an old man here was very likely to be an old monster, who had lived for 10,000 years, or even longer. What does that mean? He was at least at the true self realm, but he was more likely to be a spirit transformation perfected lord or sect master level expert. Brat, now that you've seen me, why haven't you saluted yet? The old man snorted, and his aura surged out. Ling Han originally wanted to salute. It was necessary to maintain respect for elders, but when he heard what the other party said, he felt that something was wrong. Then, he recalled that the other party had purposely thrown a fruit pit at him. Was this something an elder should do? Therefore, he activated his pupil technique and looked at the elder again. Damn, a smile tugged at the corners of Ling Han's lips, and then he shook his head. No. How dare you? The elder roared and leapt onto the ground. Behind him, an illusory figure appeared, forming the destruction of stars. It was terrifying to the extreme. This far exceeded the level of a forging cauldron. It was even the power of a sect master. However, Ling Han was unhurried as he circled around the old man. Brat, you must be tired of living, said the elder. Ling Han chuckled and didn't say anything. He continued to walk in circles. Do you really want to die? Hee hee. How brazen. I'll give you one more chance. Don't make a mistake. The elder roared, his voice booming like thunder. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. Don't be all talk and no action. Come teach me a lesson. The old man flew into a rage, and with a wave of his hand, great stars appeared behind him. Each great star was imprinted with incomparably complex symbols, and it was as if even a spirit transformation true monarch would only be able to wait for death if one of them crashed down. With a smile on his face, Ling Han placed his hands behind his back, looking calm and composed. You! Shouted the old man again. He suddenly pulled back his hand and pressed it against his stomach. Not good, I ate something bad. Kid, just you wait. I'll go to the toilet first, and then I'll come back to deal with you. He turned to run. Xiao, Ling Han's figure flashed, blocking his opponent's path. Kid, this old man will spare your life for now. Don't get carried away. The old man said coldly. Ling Han laughed heartily. Come on, old senior. How do you want to teach me a lesson? Aye. The old man's eyes darted around. He didn't look like a sect master level elite at all. He suddenly pointed behind Ling Han and said, Look, what's that? Ling Han remained unmoved and continued to stare at him. Why don't you turn around? The elder couldn't help but ask. I turned my head to look. What if you ran away? Ling Han said. What kind of joke is this? Do you know who I am? Shouted the elder. Ling Han broke into a grin. A cat demon. Puff, the old man originally wanted to roar a few more times, but after hearing Ling Han's words, he immediately wilted and revealed a shocked expression. You actually saw through my true body. What's so difficult about that? Ling Han asked calmly. Bam! There was a flash of light, and the old man in front of him immediately transformed. From a mighty figure with an imposing aura, he turned into a normal-sized white cat with a bell hanging around his neck. Meow kid, how did you see through me? The white cat asked, clearly curious. Although it was in cat form, this was no beast. It was a cat demon that was intelligent and knew how to play tricks. Fiery eyes, Ling Han said with a smile. Forget it. To be able to see through my illusion, you must have cultivated an ocular ability. There are only a few people like that in the entire star field. The white cat licked its paws. Kid, I'm warning you. Don't expose me, or I'll tell that old man Ninth Mountain to suppress you. Ling Han's heart stirred. Could Ninth Mountain be Venerable Ninth Mountain? Your Venerable Ninth Mountain's pet beast? He asked. Tui, you're the pet beast. Your whole family are pet beasts. The white cat immediately became agitated. One day, I'll suppress that Ninth Mountain guy, and make him show me how to play fur balls every day. Suddenly it pounced forward, grabbed a ball and started playing with it. But as it played, it realized something was wrong. It quickly stopped and glared at Ling Han with a bitter and hateful gaze. This was the guy who threw the ball at it. Yet out of reflex it lost control and pounced on him. It really wanted to chop off its own paws. Ling Han pursed his lips. I see that you're having fun. You clearly want to play with it yourself, right? Tui. I'm a noble illusionary cloud cat. Why would I like to play with such childish things? The white cat said proudly. Go. Ling Han threw another ball. The white cat tragically realized that it had pounced on the ball again. It was completely defenseless. Ling Han shrugged and said, Look. He was shocked. The illusionary cloud cat wasn't very powerful, but it was adept at creating illusions. The higher the realm, the more realistic the illusions would be. Even venerables and saints might fall for it. Hence, the illusionary cloud cat was an excellent support in battle. Moreover, since it could create all kinds of illusions, it was also very helpful for cultivators to comprehend treasured skills and cultivation methods. Of course, the illusionary cloud cat's realm had to be up to par. Wasn't it a joke to have a cauldron-cast illusionary cloud cat create illusions that even saints couldn't tell the difference? Stop messing with me, the white cat grumbled. Alright, I'm done. Ling Han nodded, but he couldn't help himself. Whoosh! He threw a third ball. The white cat. Alright, I'm really done. Ling Han sat back down. He had a sudden epiphany, but it was ruined in the blink of an eye. He naturally had to teach this cat a lesson. The white cat was still fuming with anger. It raised its head high, its face full of arrogance. Ling Han looked at the white cat. You specialize in swindling people, don't you? The white cat snorted. So what? I tricked them with my skills. If you're so capable, go ahead. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. You're still acting so righteous? I'm warning you again. Don't tell anyone about me, the white cat said solemnly. All right. Ling Han nodded. The white cat couldn't help but be suspicious. So straightforward. Ling Han smiled and said, whatever benefits you've obtained, you can just share some with me. What? The white cat stared at Ling Han. I suddenly realized that you're even more shameless than me. You tricked them with your skills, but so did I. Ling Han laughed. Tui. I just let those idiots use their contribution points to exchange for some cold plum wine to satisfy my craving. It's not as bad as you think, the white cat said angrily. All right, I'll keep it a secret for you. Ling Han observed the white cat's expression and felt that it was telling the truth. Are you really that kind? The white cat didn't dare to believe Ling Han so easily. If I can be tricked by you just thinking about it, then I deserve it. Ling Han laughed. The white cat immediately bristled. What do you mean? Are you looking down on me? I was just joking, just joking. Ling Han hurriedly comforted the cat demon. End of chapter. Chapter 38-32. Song Shan did not dare to be careless. He did not rush back immediately. Instead, he took a deep breath. And then his hands turned into claws, one in front and one in the right, one yin and one yang. In his palms, there were two balls of light, one black and one white. He finally attacked. His speed was extremely fast. Many people felt their vision blur, and they lost sight of Song Shan. They could not help but be shocked. If Song Shan wanted to kill them, would one move be enough? Ling Han just casually punched. He did not need to use any celestial method. It was just a simple punch. But it was such a simple punch that went straight to the root of the problem. Pung! Song Shan was instantly sent flying. Ah! Everyone was shocked again. What was going on? Why was Song Shan sent flying again? The first time could be said to be careless, but the second time, he clearly knew how powerful Ling Han was. And he still took it lightly? Absolutely not. So there was only one reason, and that was that Ling Han was too powerful. Hiss! The peak of the four cauldrons could not even fight back in front of him. How powerful was this guy? 5 cauldrons, 6 cauldrons. There were a few female practitioners here, and their eyes instantly lit up. A genius warrior and a genius alchemist. The combination of these two was so bright that even Gan Ping and Lin Qi could not overshadow them. Not far away, Song Shan crawled up from the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was full of viciousness. But he did not say anything, and just turned to leave. Wait! Ling Han stopped him. You're leaving just like that? What else do you want? Song Shan was indignant. Haha! I never like to provoke people, but when someone provokes me, even if I don't kill them, I have to convince them. In the future, when they see me, they have to call me brother. Ling Han smiled. Since we are all fellow disciples, I won't kill you. I'll beat you until you call me brother. He launched an attack at Song Shan. Although Song Shan was extraordinary, how could he be a match for Ling Han? He could only be continuously trampled, and screams could be heard. Everyone kept quiet out of fear, secretly thinking that Ling Han was really someone who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. But they asked themselves if it were them, what would they do? Many people nodded their heads. Of course we'll do it. Why should we be blackmailed by you? Are you convinced? Ling Han asked with every punch. I don't give up, I don't give up, I don't give up. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Song Shan naturally wouldn't admit defeat. In any case, Ling Han wouldn't dare to kill him, so he could continue to be stubborn. Ling Han was very patient. He punched Song Shan again and again. Every punch was skillfully executed, avoiding Song Shan's vital points, but also causing him to suffer the most pain. These 8 or 10 punches are bearable, but it has to be like this forever. Song Shan couldn't take it anymore, so he finally gave in. I'm convinced, he said with his eyes closed, his face red. Pung! Another punch. Song Shan opened his eyes. Fuck, I've already admitted defeat, and you're still fighting? What are you forgetting? Ling Han smiled slightly, but he punched again. Bang bang bang. After another dozen punches, Song Shan finally came to his senses and said, "Brother, I'm convinced. I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed." Ling Han nodded with satisfaction. Go. This time, Song Shan really didn't have any temper at all. After he got up, he bowed to Ling Han, showing the posture of a little brother, and then turned to leave. Everyone looked at Ling Han with awe. Song Shan was already unreachable in their eyes, but he was trampled on like a dead dog by Ling Han. What kind of difference in strength was this? At this moment, they saw a person climb out of the dry well. "It's Wukin, he finally climbed out," someone exclaimed. This Wukin was the person who went down the well 3 days ago, and now he had finally climbed out. Everyone looked over and saw that there were bruises on Wukin's hands and neck. What was even more frightening was that there was actually a palm print on his cheek. That finger was so thin and long that it was unreasonable. It was definitely not left by Wukin himself. Could it be that there was a ghost in the well? Everyone shuddered and hurriedly asked Wukin about it. "What 3 days?" Wukin immediately jumped up, his face full of disbelief. "I only climbed for 10 minutes or so." Everyone looked at each other in dismay. This was definitely a ghost. It was impossible that they had all remembered the wrong time. Wukin must have been confused to think of 3 days as 10 minutes. "Also, what's with your face?" everyone asked again. "What happened to my face?" Wukin was confused. Someone took out a mirror and showed it to him. Wukin looked at it and was even more confused. "There's nothing on my face." Everyone looked at it, and something even more strange happened. The palm print on Wukin's face had actually disappeared. This was really a ghost. "What did you see in the well?" everyone asked. "Nothing much, just a dry well," Wukin said. "Did you really come back?" "No." Wukin shook his head. "Then why did you come back? Didn't you say you wanted to go to the end?" "Yes." Wukin revealed a puzzled expression, clearly very puzzled. Ling Han, on the other hand, was interested. He strode towards the dry well and looked down. It was pitch black, and he could only see a few dozen feet down. Any further down, there was only darkness. Ling Han used his eye sorcery again. This time, he could see about 100 feet down, and it was still pitch black. He jumped down and went down the well. This well was very narrow, and it was difficult for a person to turn around. Therefore, Ling Han could only slowly squeeze down. He soon became impatient. This speed was too slow. He compressed his bones, and with a crisp crackling sound, his body shrunk by half, and his body suddenly accelerated. He pressed his hands lightly on the walls of the well to maintain the current speed of his fall. He did not accelerate to the point where he could not stop. He fell, and the scenery in front of him remained unchanged. It was extremely monotonous. Ling Han was suddenly startled. How long had it been? A minute, an hour, or a day? Ling Han exerted force with both hands to stop himself. He looked down, and it was still pitch black, and he could not see the bottom. He released his divine sense, and saw that there was a palm print on his cheek. The fingers were especially slender, and it was obvious that he was not human. It was the same as Wukin's. Ling Han reached out and touched the walls of the well. At the same time, he sniffed lightly, and a smile appeared on his face. If it was someone else, they would definitely be bewitched. But unfortunately, he was not only an alchemist but also an array master. It was very difficult for these two identities to appear in one person, but he was such a freak. Ling Han took out the demon core of the giant frog and put it in his mouth. At the same time, he opened the screen of starlight and touched the walls of the well. Yes. He continued to slowly climb down, but he stopped after descending 100 zhang. It was because he saw a hole. It was extremely small, and for his body, it was simply impossible to pass through. But it did not matter. Ling Han shrank his body again and landed in the hole. "How did you find out?" A voice came from the front, full of surprise. Chapter 38-33. Ling Han activated his eye technique. It looked like a child. He was no more than 3 feet tall, but he had a pair of thin and long hands. However, he actually had a beard on his face. It's just an illusory formation. Coupled with some mind-confusing drugs, It's not that hard to break. He smiled. The dwarf's face was filled with disbelief. Don't say it so casually. Since ancient times, other than those big shots in the sacred ground, which disciple could break this double illusion of an array formation and drugs? Moreover, they also secretly put a palm print on people's faces, but it would quickly disappear after coming into contact with sunlight, causing an extremely strange effect. Although new students would come out of curiosity every time, as long as they were scared, they would naturally be at ease in the future. Now that he was caught by a new student, this was the first time he was exposed. You're a freak, he said weakly. Ling Han could not help but be speechless. Why did it sound so awkward to be called a freak by a dwarf? He shook his head and said, Are you the only one here? How is that possible? We the crypt dwellers are a huge group, the dwarf said. Come tell me. Ling Han sat cross-legged. I can't say. This is the rule of the tribe. The dwarf hurriedly shook his head. Ling Han smiled. Looks like we need to have a good chat. In just half an hour, the dwarf had told him everything in full detail. A long time ago, the crypt dwellers encountered a natural enemy and were about to be destroyed. Fortunately, a supremacy of the Nine Suns sacred ground passed by and was soft-hearted. He saved the crypt dwellers and moved all of them to the Nine Suns sacred ground. As the name suggested, the crypt dwellers all lived in caves. In the Nine Suns sacred ground, they all lived underground and dug tunnels. However, the crypt dwellers did not live there for nothing. They had a specialty, and that was planting immortal herbs. In the huge underground space under the sacred ground, the crypt dwellers planted a large number of immortal herbs to supply the sacred ground's consumption. Therefore, one side provided protection in terms of safety, while the other side provided immortal herbs. It could be considered a mutual benefit. Ling Han's eyes sparkled. Come, let's go take a look at your immortal herb fields. Are you trying to steal the immortal medicine? The cave dweller was about to cry. How could he be so easily frightened? He'd confess everything in a muddle-headed manner. Do you think a righteous person like me would be a thief? Ling Han glared at him. I'm just looking. The cave dweller had no choice but to bring Ling Han to take a look. He did not expose the matter of the cave dwellers, but instead left behind the legend of the bottomless well. This was the bad taste of a deceased elder in the Holy Land, and it was believed that the other legends were the same. Ling Han was also very speechless. After the Nine Suns sage hid the god-slaying art, he played with the successors of the later generations. He was also thinking of ways to prank the disciples of the later generations. It did not take long before a huge herbal field appeared before Ling Han. According to the cave dweller, this was just one of the herbal fields. Ling Han smiled and said to the cave dweller, This is a little secret between us. I've never been here before, right? Yes. The cave dweller hurriedly nodded. Ling Han left. When he wanted to refine pills, he would come here for a stroll. He believed that no one would be able to discover his existence if he used the void beast's skin to conceal himself. He returned the way he came. After exiting the dry well, everyone hurriedly asked him about it. Ling Han pretended to be at a loss. There was also a palm print on his face, but it quickly disappeared after coming into contact with light. His situation was the same as Wuxia's, so no one suspected him. He then went to the stone that he could not move no matter how hard he tried. This stone was only the size of a head, and it did not look like a precious stone. It looked very ordinary, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not move it. Ling Han tried many times, but this stone could absorb energy. No matter how strong you were, it was useless. Not to mention that he could not move it. Even using immortal attacks was useless. This was a little like a lecherous pig that could absorb all attacks. Ling Han then went to the cave where Ghost Sob came from. There were people forming a group here, wanting to go in and adventure. According to an elder from a holy land, there was a secret technique hidden within the cave, but it was extremely dangerous. Although entering wouldn't be life-threatening, coming out would at least result in a serious illness. But when these people heard that there was no danger to their lives, and that they might even be able to obtain the secret technique, they naturally became excited. Brother Ling, how about we go exploring together? Someone asked. Ling Han shook his head. If he was alone, he would be more nimble. If we work together, our chances of success will be greater. That person still wanted to persuade him. Don't waste your energy. He doesn't even care about us, said one of the team members. The other three hurriedly covered his mouth. You still don't know that Song Shan was beaten to the point of begging for mercy? You actually dared to provoke this fiend? Ling Han smiled faintly and walked into the cave. He had only taken a few steps when a strange sound rang out. It sounded like the wind, but also like the howl of ghosts. It caused one's hair to stand on end, and it was even more destructive to one's divine sense. Ling Han activated a screen of starlight. His secret energy reserves were incomparably deep, and he didn't care about wasting even a little bit of it. But he found that the screen of starlight couldn't block this sound. It was only slightly weakened, but it still continued to attack him. It surged into his knowledge sea and transformed into swords, wanting to unleash a great destruction. Ling Han snorted and activated the 6-word Wisdom King incantation. Although it was only a single word, it was still an emperor art. How tyrannical was it? Hiss! He shouted in his knowledge sea. Buddhist chants surged out, and those swords immediately shattered. Ling Han strode forward, but the ghost sob came again. Hiss! Ling Han chanted Buddhist chants, skillfully resisting the ghost sob. This cave was very large, and also very complicated. After walking around in circles for a very long time, the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped. Even with Ling Han's physique, he could feel the flow of his blood slowing down, even as if it was about to freeze. He couldn't help but shiver. Was there a piece of 10,000-year mysterious ice hidden in this cave? Why was it so cold? At this moment, he suddenly saw a figure floating out of a stone pillar in front of him. How could a person come out of a stone pillar? Ghost, Ling Han immediately said in his heart. In fact, phantoms could also pass through physical objects, but combined with the sudden cold environment, he was more inclined to believe that this was a ghost. Could it be that the 9 Sun sacred ground was also suppressing an underworld passage? Just as he was pondering, the Eam spirit had already launched an attack towards him with a sharp shriek. Ling Han revealed a mocking expression. When the ghost approached, he punched out, and destructive energy surged. The ghost immediately had a frightened expression on its face. It quickly stopped and retreated. From its point of view, encountering destructive energy was like an ordinary person encountering a ghost. Ling Han chased after it and punched out repeatedly, destroying the ghost. According to the information obtained from Saint Guyang, ghosts were the enemies of all living beings. Once ghosts invaded, they would replace living beings, and the whole world would be in chaos. Therefore, when encountering ghosts, one must not show mercy. Chapter 38-34. A dead person was like an extinguished lamp. Death was death. Even if the Ean spirit was brought back from the netherworld and returned to its original body, it would no longer be the same person. Ean spirits had lost all the good aspects of intelligent creatures and only had extreme negative emotions. They were even more ruthless and terrifying than ferocious beasts. At least, once ferocious beasts were full, they would be too lazy to hunt. But Ean spirits were different. They only had the urge to destroy everything. Was the appearance of Ean spirits a coincidence? Had the sacred lands Almighty deliberately arranged for them to be here to prank the future disciples? Ling Han would rather believe this possibility. Otherwise, if there was an entrance to the netherworld here, it would be too dangerous. Back then, there had been a saint overseeing the place, but the heavenly sea star had still been destroyed in the battle. Now, although it was also a sacred land, there was no saint overseeing it. If a Ean spirit riot broke out, it could be imagined that the 9 Sun star would soon be ravaged by Ean spirits and become an Azura hell. He continued forward and soon, another Ean spirit appeared and attacked him. This was very regular, as if each Ean spirit had been set in a fixed area. Only when he entered that area would the Ean spirit attack. From the looks of it, there shouldn't be an entrance to the netherworld in the 9 Sun star. Destructive energy was the bane of Ean spirits. Thus, the Ean spirits that others found extremely difficult to deal with were extremely simple for Ling Han. Moreover, even the 6-word Wisdom King mantra had a certain restraining effect on Yin's spirits. After some effort, Ling Han finally reached the end of the cave. This was an extremely smooth stone wall. It was obvious that someone had deliberately carved it out, but it should have been very old. There were no signs of it being polished. However, there were paintings on the stone wall. As Ling Han looked at them, these static images suddenly moved and played out in his mind. This was an immortal art called the soul derivation technique. It was used to derive another soul. This second soul was very weak and couldn't be cultivated. However, it could completely change a person's appearance. At first glance, it seemed worthless, but if it was used to conceal one's identity, it would be a divine art. Ling Han couldn't help but feel excited. If he cultivated the soul derivation technique, would he be able to open a star web account? If he could even deceive the star web, it would solve the problem of Ling Han not being able to communicate with others through the star web. He silently recited the incantation, understanding it word by word. At the same time, the picture on the stone wall was also moving, as if it was explaining it to him. This had been left behind by a venerable. Back then, he had almost become a saint, and he had studied the soul the most. This soul derivation technique was just one of the techniques he had created, and it was also the work he was most proud of. Although it did not help with cultivation, he was probably the only one in the entire universe who had managed to do it. In fact, this soul derivation technique wasn't even on the Holy Land's exchange list. It could only be learned here. This mnemonic chant was too obscure. Ling Han spent an entire day before he finally grasped the gist of it. He connected to the star web and rented a time room to master this spell as soon as possible. After another 3 days, he finally felt that he could try cultivating. He separated a bit of his divine sense to change his appearance. Ling Han failed again and again. After another 2 days he finally succeeded. With a thought, the ripples of his divine sense immediately changed. Now even if he appeared in the outside world, most people would probably think that he was impersonating Ling Han. That was because anyone could easily imitate his appearance, but the ripples of his divine sense were fixed. Every person was a unique individual, and there was definitely no duplicate. Let's give it a try. He turned on the connection, and immediately a voice sounded. You currently don't have an account. Would you like to register one now? Yes. Ling Han smiled. It was done. He could now openly appear on the star web. There was nothing to hide. He named himself Ling Han, the same as himself. Swoosh. Celestial suddenly appeared and transformed into a 5-year-old boy. He stared at Ling Han for a while, and without saying anything, turned into a shadow and disappeared. What did this mean? Had he been discovered? Ling Han shrugged. Since his account had not been cancelled, it meant that Celestial had acquiesced. That was enough. Ling Han immediately contacted Tang Yan, and the two of them became good friends. You're finally willing to use the star web. Tang Yan looked very happy. You're still on Moonlight? Ling Han asked. Yes, many forces are looking for my Tang family now. I have to keep a low profile, Tang Yan said. Then he said loudly, when I master the turbid sky scripture, I'll settle the score with them one by one. He paused and asked, what about you? I'm in the 9 Sun sacred ground now. Wow, you even managed to pass such a perverted test. Tang Yan was shocked. How are you and that person from the Jin family now? Not bad. At least she responds when I talk to her. Ling Han could not help but sweat. You really have low requirements. I can't help it. If I had your strength, it would definitely be different. After they chatted for a while, Ling Han cut off the communication. This time, he was just testing the soul derivation technique. It was very convenient to contact him anyway. This was really a pleasant surprise. Ling Han walked back. When he passed a fork in the road, he saw a group of people running out in a sorry state. All of them were bleeding from their orifices, and they looked very dispirited. If one did not have a divine sense attack or defense method, they would only be at a disadvantage. He strode out and returned to his residence, but he saw that the big black dog was already waiting for him. Ling Han was just about to make a joke, but he saw that the big black dog was very dispirited, as if it had been seriously injured. What happened? He asked in a low voice. Grandpa Dog was bullied, and your wife. the big black dog said. Ling Han was immediately angry, and his eyes emitted killing intent. He forcefully suppressed it and said in a low voice, "Tell me in detail." The big black dog nodded. "Your monkey wife." Ling Han immediately wanted to interrupt it. The demon princess was not his wife, but if he interrupted it, the big black dog would probably argue with him for a long time. Thus, he chose to remain silent and continue listening. She was quite pretty, but she was targeted by someone. That guy was called Shui Hai, and he always circled around your monkey wife. You couldn't chase him away, the big black dog continued. Later, eldest brother couldn't help it anymore and beat that guy up. I didn't expect that guy to have an older brother, Shui Zhan, who was at the caste tripod realm. He actually bullied the young and injured the 7 children, Grandpa Dog and Lin Luo. He even said that if the monkey wife didn't get along with his brother, he would come again. Ling Han controlled his killing intent and said, "Isn't there a rule in the Holy Land that caste tripod realm cultivators cannot attack Foundation establishment cultivators? If a sect did not have such a basic rule, how could it survive?" Chapter 38-36. Ling Han gave Shui Zhan a good beating. The Shui brothers should be thankful that they were in the 9-sun holy ground. Otherwise, Ling Han would not have been so polite, and would have killed them directly. "Good beating! Good beating!" the big black dog shouted, but he resisted the urge to rush up and kick them. This was what Ling Han had specially told him. If he was alone, it would be easy to deal with. After 10 minutes of beating, the uncle of the Shui family, Shui Bingyuan, finally arrived. It was not that he did not receive Shui Zhan's call for help, but that he was serving Lu Sanjun drinking tea at that time, so he did not dare to speak. Lu Sanjun was indeed a headstrong person, but he was not stupid. If he knew that Shui Bingyuan was using his name to intimidate others, Shui Bingyuan would definitely not have a good ending. It was just a caste cauldron, so there was no need to let Lu Sanjun know. Therefore, Shui Bingyuan could only continue to endure until Lu Sanjun finished drinking tea and went to cultivate again. Only then did he get the chance to immediately attack. He was aggressive. Since he knew the Shui brothers were his clansmen, this Ling Han still dared to attack. He was really bold. Was he rebelling? "How dare you?" Shui Bingyuan said indifferently. He stepped into the air. This was an ability that only life core cultivators had. They finally did not need to rely on Dharma artifacts to fly, and could even step in the air. "Not as bold as you. You're just a Taoist child, but you dare to indulge your clansmen and break the rules of the holy ground," Ling Han said indifferently. "Do you think that the holy ground is owned by your family?" Shui Bingyuan raised his eyebrows and immediately wanted to fly into a rage. He was at the life core realm, and he was also Lu Sanjuan's Taoist child, who didn't give him some face. So what if he was a caste cauldron disciple? But Ling Han dared to laugh at him. How could he not be angry? However, the Shui brothers were still in Ling Han's hands, so he did not dare to act rashly. "Let them go," he said coldly. "Who are you trying to show off?" Ling Han shook his head unmoved. "Humph." Shui Bingyuan released his own aura, which instantly surged like a tsunami. What a fool. Didn't he know that a martial artist with a higher cultivation realm could completely crush a martial artist with a lower cultivation realm? He didn't even need to make a move. Just his aura alone was enough to disintegrate Ling Han's battle prowess, making him unable to withstand a single blow. However, when the aura surged, Ling Han did not change in the slightest. What? Shui Bingyuan was astonished. What was going on? Could it be that the other party had some kind of secret treasure that could resist the suppression of a master's aura? It must be so. He felt slightly troubled, because this forced him to make a move. Once he made a move, the 2 hostages, Shui Zhan and Shui Hai, would become variables. It's impolite not to reciprocate. Ling Han attacked with his baleful aura. So what if Shui Bingyuan was at the life core realm? Shui Bingyuan was completely caught off guard. He was instantly hit, and was momentarily bewildered. However, he was an expert after all, so this effect only lasted for an instant. Shui Bingyuan flew into a rage out of humiliation, his old face flushed red. His name was Dao Child, but after so many years, He had long since grown from a child to an old man. This was too shameful. The aura that he released did not affect Ling Han at all, but Ling Han's counterattack actually hit him. How could he endure this? It was a known fact that Ling Han was only at the cast tripod stage, but he was at the life core realm. Xue Bingyuan's eyes were already shooting out a chilling glow. He had the urge to kill Ling Han, without any regard for the consequences. Ling Han let out a slight smile, grabbed the Xue brothers, and turned to leave. If you have the ability, come and chase me. If you can catch me, I will consider it your win. He executed near, yet worlds apart, and his speed was extremely fast. Xue Bingyuan naturally did not hesitate to give chase. A mere cast tripod, no matter how extraordinary he was just like an ant in his eyes. How could he be afraid? But he was surprised to find that Ling Han's speed was too fast. It was so fast that it did not seem like a cast tripod realm. This speed was probably the speed of someone who had just entered the life core realm. This kid should be using some kind of powerful movement skill. But the stronger a cultivation skill, the more limited the time it could be used. Movement skills were no exception. Was this kid on steroids or something? He could still maintain such a high speed while carrying two people? It was too unbelievable. But there was no other choice. He couldn't just give chase, right? Xue Bingyuan did his best to chase, and slowly closed the gap. He was at the late stage of the life core realm. And his speed was naturally not something that a person who had just entered the life core realm could compare with. Seeing that the distance between him and Ling Han was getting closer, this kid suddenly braked and actually stopped. Xue Bingyuan didn't know what Ling Han was doing, but he already had an extreme vigilance against this cast tripod junior. He didn't dare to be careless and also stopped. As long as he didn't make any changes, with his life core realm strength, he would definitely be able to firmly suppress Ling Han. I have hostages in my hands. You better not come any closer. Ling Han raised the Xue brothers in his hands. PFFF. Xue Bingyuan nearly fell. He was still fearful of Ling Han a moment ago, but this kid actually showed such weakness in the blink of an eye. It was truly a surprise to him. This kid might be timid, but he even dared to provoke him. But if he was courageous, he actually wanted to use hostages to threaten him. What kind of man was this? What do you want for you to release them? Xue Bingyuan asked calmly. Let's have a good talk about compensation, Ling Han said seriously. All right, how do you want compensation? Xue Bingyuan smiled. This kid was finally afraid. This was very natural. He was a life core realm elite, and behind him stood a sect master level ultimate elite. Wasn't it very normal for him to give in? Ling Han shook his head. Old man, you're wrong. It's not how I compensate, but how you compensate. What? Xue Bingyuan was stunned for a moment before he came to his senses. He couldn't help but be furious. You beat up my clansmen, and this is the first to provoke me. Moreover, you're just a cast tripod. So where did you get the courage to ask a life core realm elite like me to compensate? You're really tired of living, he said darkly. Xiao, people flew over from afar, and they came one after another. There were quite a few of them. There were Lin Luo, the Empress, and the others. There were also unrelated people. When they saw Ling Han and Xue Bingyuan rushing over, they subconsciously ran over to watch the show. Xue Bingyuan was calm and unafraid. He felt that he was in the right. And even if he injured Ling Han in the end, Lu Sanjun would still protect him. Thus, he stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking very confident. Ling Han's expression was solemn. This bastard coveted my wife and repeatedly harassed me. After I taught him a lesson and told him to restrain himself, he actually invited his older brother, who was in the cast tripod tier, to come and beat up all my friends. However, he himself did not receive any punishment. In the end, why do they have such courage? It's because they have a life core realm relative like you. He originally wanted to say that Princess Bai Xiao was his friend, but after thinking about it, how could a friend's hatred be greater than his wife's? Thus, he changed his words at the last moment. He believed that the Empress and the demon race princess would understand. Chapter 38-37. Xiao. More people ran over. For example, Tan Meng, Jiangxiu, The 3 beauties on the beauty ranking were all here. They were all very concerned about this matter. In their eyes, although Ling Han was not qualified to be their son-in-law, he was still a rare talent. They wanted to recruit him, and this was a good opportunity. Ling Han would definitely not be able to solve this problem. If he settled it for Ling Han, the other party would owe him a huge favor. The rest would be easy. Of course, Xue Bingyuan would not admit it in front of everyone. He just waved his sleeve and said, "Nonsense." Ling Han smiled and threw Xue Zhan to the ground. Then, he patted Xue Hai's head and said, "Come, as the person involved, the instigator, tell me the whole story." "You're talking nonsense." Xue Hai would definitely not admit it, and immediately shouted. Under such circumstances, would Ling Han still dare to extort a confession? "Ah!" he suddenly screamed. One of his hands had been broken by Ling Han. This guy was really daring. Hiss! No wonder this guy had been staring at his face and slapping it. Had he already anticipated this scene at that time? Ling Han did not only break his arm, but also started to crush his finger bones inch by inch. The fingers were connected to the heart. How painful was this? Xue Hai screamed again and again, tears flowing down his face. "Stop!" Xue Bingyuan shouted angrily. However, he realized that Ling Han was full of murderous intent. He did not dare to act rashly. In this state, Ling Han would really kill someone. He could not force him into a corner. He had an idea, and told Xue Hai through the connection device to temporarily let him go, and admit it. In any case, he could say that it was Ling Han who forced him to confess. Xue Hai could not hold on anymore. Now that his uncle had let him go, he naturally told everything in detail. Many people did not know the whole story. After hearing it, they were all furious. If a sect did not even have basic rules, how could people cultivate in peace? This is too much. And you? Ling Han pointed at Xue Zhan. Xue Zhan didn't want to suffer anymore. He also wanted to confess and be lenient. However, Ling Han didn't care about the consequences. He first broke most of Xue Zhan's bones before he could speak. Everyone looked at Ling Han and broke out in cold sweat. This fellow was vengeful and decisive. He must not be provoked in the future. Even Tan Meng and the other 2 women's beautiful eyes rippled. Could they control such a man? Ling Han smiled. "All right, since you've confessed and admitted your mistakes, I'll let you go. I'll deal with you according to the sect's rules." As soon as he finished speaking, his hands shook. Bang! Bang! The Xue brothers were tossed out by him, and they descended on the ground extremely far away. Everyone was stunned. What was going on? Without a hostage, how could you threaten a life dance stage expert? You were so impressive just now. But if a life core realm expert were to make a move, wouldn't you follow in the footsteps of the Xue brothers? To be confused in the head, Xue Bingyuan laughed. But his voice was cold and filled with anger. "Brat, you really have guts. Uncle, kill him. Kill him." Xue Hai clamored at the side. He was trampled on by Xue Bingyuan, and didn't dare to speak before, for fear of angering Ling Han. But now that he had escaped from the tiger's mouth, and with his uncle around, he naturally had no inhibitions. Although Xue Zhan didn't say anything, his eyes were filled with hatred. Naturally, he hoped that Ling Han would be taught a lesson by Xue Bingyuan, and it would be best if he was killed. Ling Han smiled. "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Because he was confident, Xue Bingyuan was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he said indifferently, "Shouldn't you be afraid of me?" "Why should I be afraid?" Ling Han shook his head. "I'm a disciple of a sacred ground." "Who are you? You're just a Dao child. You want me to be afraid of you? Haha. Do you still care about the sacred ground?" Xue Bingyuan was instantly stifled. This stab hurt him. Even if he was now at the life core realm, and could look down on all the disciples in this batch, when it came to status, how could a mere Dao child be put on the stage? His expression was twisted, and his eyes were spitting fire. "I'm at the life core realm. You dare to disrespect a strong cultivator? This is looking down on the order of martial art," he said coldly. He couldn't bear it anymore and stepped forward, wanting to take Ling Han down. However, just as he took a step forward, he saw that the ground around him was actually lit up with lines, forming an intricate pattern. "Not good, this is a formation," he shouted in his heart. Suddenly, he understood why Ling Han lured him here, and why he suddenly stopped. So it was to lure him into a formation. But a mere formation made by a casting cauldron, how could it trap him? If I were you from now on, I wouldn't move a muscle, Ling Han said slowly. Xue Bingyuan was unwilling to listen, and his foot had already landed. A mere casting cauldron in my eyes is no different from an ant. Bang! Instantly, the brilliance of the formation pattern flashed chaotically and shot towards Xue Bingyuan. Xue Bingyuan made a move to shatter the brilliance, but he suddenly realized that the attack power of the brilliance was not only terrifying, but also massive and endless. Even if it was him, he would only be tired of defending. He turned pale with fright. If this carried on, he would eventually collapse. It was truly unbelievable that a cast tripod realm could actually set up a life core class formation. He hurriedly broke through, wanting to kill his way out of the array formation. However, this action of his incited an even more intense backlash from the array formation. More and more brilliance surged out and shot towards him. From the outside, these lights actually formed the shape of a vase. This is the three-phase treasure bottle array. Someone recognized it. What? An array that can slaughter the life core? It can't be. Everyone exclaimed in shock, and then came to a sudden realization. No wonder Ling Han was so calm and composed. So everything was under his control. They couldn't help but sigh. Even a life core realm was toyed around by Ling Han. How awesome! Tan Meng and the other two beauties' eyes lit up, and they felt that it was time to re-evaluate Ling Han's value. He was not only a great alchemist, but he also had outstanding talent in the array Dao. Such a talent was worthy of being roped in with the highest treatment. He could even be a candidate for a future husband. At this moment, the ones with the worst expressions were naturally the Xuehai and Xuezhan brothers. Their uncle, whom they relied on as a great wall, was actually taken care of by Ling Han just like that. It was like a dream. They looked at Ling Han and felt that this young man was basically a monster. The life core was actually suppressed by the cast cauldron. Ah! Xue Bingyuan screamed. The three-phase treasure bottle array could refine life core realm martial artists. And although he was at the late stage of the life core, he was just a Dao child. His talent in martial art naturally couldn't be that outstanding. His strength could only be considered average, and he had no way to break out of the array. Chapter 38:38. A Beautiful Romance. Hearing Xue Bingyuan's screams grow louder and louder, everyone's hair stood on end. Could it be that Ling Han wanted to refine Xue Bingyuan alive? No one would believe such a thing. A cast cauldron had not only defeated a life core cultivator, but had also counterattacked. Wasn't this a fantasy? Moreover, there was a sect master level expert behind Xue Bingyuan. Weren't you afraid of Lu Sanjuan's thunderous rage? Brat, stop! Stop! Xue Bingyuan screamed. He really couldn't hold on any longer. If he continued to stubbornly resist, he would really be refined alive. Ling Han, however, acted as if he hadn't heard anything. His family and friends were his reverse scale, so once someone provoked him, he would definitely fiercely retaliate. He would let everyone know that this was an uncrossable bottom line. Xue Bingyuan hadn't expected Ling Han to be so ruthless. He really wanted to put himself in a dead end. He had no choice but to ask Lu Sanjun for help. Originally, he didn't want to trouble Lu Sanjun. How could a master wipe the mess of a servant? Moreover, he, a grand life core cultivator, couldn't even deal with the cast cauldron. With Lu Sanjuan's fiery temper, would she still allow him to follow her in the future? Thus, he had always wanted to rely on his own strength to escape. Now that he couldn't force his way out, and begging for mercy was useless, he could only use his final move. Only by being alive would there be hope. If he died, everything would be for naught. Ling Han sneered. He began to circle around the formation. Although he seemed very casual, with every step he took, strands of psychokinesis would enter the ground to draw upon the power of heaven and earth. With his current strength, it was naturally impossible for him to move to the life core formation. However, the formation had already been formed. If he only went to add fuel to the fire, it would naturally be 100 times easier. Ah! Shui Bingyuan's screams suddenly became louder and more mournful. He felt that he couldn't hold on any longer. More importantly, Lu Sanjun was currently comprehending and searching for an opportunity to break through to the supremacy realm. Once he entered a deep meditative state, how could he be awakened by a light call from him? Ancestor! Ancestor! Save me! He desperately called for help through the connecting device, but very quickly, the device fell with a bang. It had been destroyed by the formation's refinement. He was in despair. The terrifying energy was currently refining him, making him one with heaven and earth. Wang! Right at this moment, a terrifying aura circulated. Everyone felt their vision blur. And then a white-haired, white-haired old man with a square face appeared on the battlefield. He exuded boundless might. Lu Sanjun, sect master level almighty, he made a move. With just a grab, the precious bottle that was actually formed from energy shattered with a loud rumble. How could a life core realm great formation compare to a sect master level attack? However, it was already too late. Within the array, Shui Bingyuan had already turned into a pile of bones. Even so, Lu Sanjun could still easily capture the fragments of consciousness emitted by this corpse. It was a lingering resentment. Who dares to kill this old man's Dao child? Lu Sanjun asked coldly. The surrounding temperature immediately plummeted. So what if they were cast cauldrons? They all shivered and wanted to wrap their arms around themselves. Ice shards continued to fall from the sky. This was a sect master level powerhouse. With a single thought, they could affect heaven and earth. And with a single anger, they could cause rivers of blood. Ancestor! Shuizhan scrambled over. Shui Bingyuan was this junior's uncle. I am Shuizhan. My uncle was killed by that despicable brat. He pointed at Ling Han, his eyes filled with resentment, as well as a sliver of light. Shui Bingyuan had died at the hands of Ling Han. Not only could he borrow Lu Sanjuan's strength to kill Ling Han, but if he performed well, he could even use Lu Sanjun as a connection. Thus, this was an opportunity. Shuai was not stupid. He also ran over and knelt on the ground, pouring out Ling Han's crimes. From the mouths of these two brothers, everything was naturally Ling Han's fault. He had bullied them just because he was stronger. And after they had asked for Shui Bingyuan's help, they had been killed by Ling Han's formation. This was really twisting the truth and spouting nonsense. However, Lu Sanjuan's expression became more and more unsightly. Even if he only had to believe a little, with Shui Bingyuan's corpse lying in front of him, it was enough to make him so angry that he wanted to kill someone. How dare you? Lu Sanjun looked at Ling Han coldly. Even if your talent is peerless, you will only become a great threat in the future if you do evil. Let this old man get rid of you. He stretched out his hand. Boom! Endless energy gathered, turning into a huge hand that slapped towards Ling Han. This was the attack of a sect master level powerhouse. Even if Ling Han was 100 times more monstrous, it would be useless. He could not match it at all unless he took out the heavenly flame of the primal chaos extreme thunder tower. However, Ling Han did not do so. This was because a figure shot out and blocked this attack in time. Yen Dong, what is the meaning of this? Lu Sanjun asked coldly. The person who blocked him was Yen Dong. Yen Dong chuckled. This old man is here to mediate a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Lu Sanjun sneered. My Dao child died here. Could my eyes be playing tricks on me? Yen Dong still had a smile on his face, but in his heart, he was blaming Ling Han for going overboard and actually killing someone. But on the other hand, he was also full of praise for Ling Han. How many people in history were able to forge the life-killing elixir? He was just a Dao child and not an official disciple. In Yen Dong's opinion, this wasn't a problem at all. The problem now was Lu Sanjuan's face. As long as Lu Sanjuan's face was acceptable, this matter was actually easy to settle. Ling Han, come and apologize to Elder Lu. He beckoned to Ling Han. Yes. Ling Han had a respectful expression and walked to Yen Dong's side with large strides. He then cupped his hands towards Lu Sanjun and said, This junior made a mistake and mistakenly killed Elder Lu's Dao child. I am willing to compensate. Compensate your sister. Lu Sanjun was almost angered to death. He was a cult master level expert, and would care about the compensation of a puny cast tripod realm martial artist? What could he compensate? Even if he had to pay with his life, he wouldn't care. Well, was this an apology or a mockery? Good, he said in a stern tone and stared at Yin Dong. You must interfere. Yin Dong was now in a difficult position, but he was extremely tactful and said, This is the matter of the sacred ground, and we are all disciples of the sacred ground. Don't be impulsive. Lu Sanjun pretended not to hear, and pointed to Shuizhan. All right, in a month's time, this old man will guide this person, and then have a life-and-death battle with that evil brat. Life-and-death battle? That would be a fight to the death. Lu Sanjun looked at Shuizhan. Do you dare? Shuizhan clenched his teeth and said, I dare. This was obviously an opportunity for Lu Sanjun to use extraordinary means to increase his strength crazily in a month. This was a great opportunity. Of course, it would definitely be extremely painful. To have a drastic change in his strength in a month was not just a joke. Lu Sanjun looked at Ling Han again. Do you dare? Yin Dong gave a look to Ling Han, indicating for Ling Han not to agree. Since Xue Bingyuan wasn't a disciple of the sacred ground, it didn't matter if he died. All right, Ling Han said indifferently. Chapter 3840. Ling Han didn't fight back. The best way to deal with this kind of person was to beat him up. Once he was beaten down, he would be convinced. 5 days, 10 days, half a month. Time passed quietly, and the 1-month deadline was getting closer and closer. No one knew how powerful Shuizhan was now, because he had been staying at Lu Sanjuan's place. Who dared to break into the residence of a sect master? However, according to Lin Qi, he had been invited by Lu Sanjun to spar with Shuizhan. When the news came out, everyone was curious. They all asked Lin Qi what level Shuizhan's strength had reached. Lin Qi didn't say it directly. He just said that Ling Han was doomed. Wasn't that enough? Ling Han didn't care at all. In his imagination, he had already regarded Shuizhan as an 8-cauldron cultivator. So it wasn't strange for an 8-cauldron cultivator to tie, or even defeat Lin Qi. The problem now was that the cave dwellers seemed to have realized that something was secretly eating their celestial medicine, and had already strengthened their defenses. When Ling Han had gone to steal the medicine yesterday, he had almost been discovered, because shockingly, there was an elite of the true self tier. If he wanted to steal medicine again, it would be more difficult. It couldn't be helped. Who asked Ling Han to steal every day? This would definitely arouse suspicion. Fortunately, Ling Han's cultivation was almost close to the peak of the 4-cauldron level. He didn't steal any more medicine. Instead, he focused on cultivating. Even if it wasn't half an hour before sunrise, he was still cultivating. Although the efficiency was 100 times lower, it was still meat. In the current situation, he had to seize every second. Another 7 days later, Ling Han finally reached the peak of the 4-cauldron level. He could break through to the 5-cauldron level. The basic conditions were met, but he still needed an opportunity to break through. How could he break through just because he wanted to? Ling Han went to the star web to fight. He wanted to find inspiration in the battle, and take that crucial step. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Ling Han didn't make any progress. It seemed that he could only reach the 4-cauldron level. That was his limit. Of course, Ling Han didn't believe it. He wasn't fighting, but was meditating in seclusion. He emptied his mind, no longer dwelling on the battle that would take place in a few days. Instead, he went through his recent battles over and over again. Finally, he recalled the battles of the monolith ancestor king in his mind. Vast scenes appeared in his sea of consciousness on a magnificent scale. Suddenly he was inspired. Startling Han drank a mouthful of earth spirit stone milk, sat cross-legged, and attempted to break through the 5 cauldrons. He also ate a cauldron heart pill. In his sea of consciousness, the image of an immortal cauldron appeared. Although it was fake, it could be used as a reference to construct his 5th celestial cauldron. Come life essence condensed, turning into the core of the 5th immortal cauldron. Then with this as the foundation, it continuously strengthened. 2 days later, the breakthrough was complete. In Ling Han's sea of consciousness, the 5th cauldron had already been completed. It gently rose and fell, immortal energy scattering down. However, it only had a cauldron body, no cauldron feet. Although I'm only at the early stage of the 5th cauldron, with my battle prowess, defeating 8 cauldrons shouldn't be a problem. Even if I encounter 9 cauldrons, I believe I'll be able to put up a fight. Ling Han was full of confidence. Of course, the more cauldrons one formed, the more talented they were. This meant that such a genius battle prowess would also be stronger. In the entire universe, how many people could cultivate to 9 cauldrons at the same time? Therefore, such people were bound to have heaven-defying battle prowess. Ling Han didn't dare boast that he could beat someone a few levels above him. For example, Shi, Myriad Daos, and Heaven Splitter were all monsters like him. How could it be possible to overcome 2 or 3 levels above them? However, Shuozhan snickered. How could this kind of cultivation, achieved in a short amount of time, and relying on the power of others, compare to Shi and Shi? Not to mention Shi, even Wuxia and Yuan Tian were much stronger than him. There were still 3 days until the life and death battle. Ling Han came out of seclusion and began to wander around the sacred land, appearing extremely calm. In this sacred land, there could be secret techniques hidden everywhere. Therefore, he had just broken through, and it was not suitable for him to advance further. He needed to relax, which was perfect for treasure hunting. His luck started to improve. In just 3 short days, he actually obtained quite a few immortal techniques from the cracks in the rocks, the fish in the lake, and the eruption pattern of the volcano. Unfortunately, their levels weren't too high. Now he really didn't care too much about the secret techniques of the sect master level. Then, in another night, it would be the day of the battle between Ling Han and Shuozhan. The sun rose, and Ling Han cultivated for half an hour as usual. This was something that couldn't be changed. He packed up and left. At the foot of the mountain, he saw the Empress, Hunyo Lin Luo, Wu Qiyuan, Yuan Tian, and the others were already waiting for him. Ling Han nodded at them, and then headed towards the place of the battle. This was a huge open space, and there were many people waiting there. The whole sacred land had been reinforced by generations of great elites, so not to mention caste cauldron level. Even if great elites of sect master level attacked, the damage they could cause was extremely limited. Therefore, there was no need to deliberately set up a stage for this life and death battle. As expected, Lin Qi and Gan Ping didn't come, as if to tell everyone that they didn't think highly of Ling Han at all, and didn't want to waste time. However, Tan Meng and the other 2 beauties all arrived. Seeing Ling Han coming, they all came up to greet him. Senior brother Ling, if you don't have confidence, don't fight. Jiangqiu was the first to say. Exactly, senior brother Ling is skilled in both alchemy and formations. It's not worthwhile to fight with a crude person, Jiang Yifei echoed. Tan Meng smiled sweetly. I wish senior brother Ling a triumphant return in advance. She had fought with Ling Han, and with her intelligence and wisdom, she naturally understood Ling Han's character very well. If this guy didn't have confidence, how could he agree to fight Shuozhan to the death? Therefore, this guy definitely had a trump card. After all, Elder Yindong had stood up for him before. Then, Shuozhan could get Lu Sanjun's help, but Ling Han couldn't? Hunyo instantly revealed a protective attitude, and looked at the 3 girls with a vigilant gaze. You 3 ugly things, Ling Han is Nyo's, don't even think about it. These words were too direct, causing the 3 girls' pretty faces to blush. They were noble ladies on the exceptional beauty ranking, and who knew how many geniuses would break their heads just to see them? But you mistakenly thought that they were here to get close to Ling Han. Ling Han hadn't spoken yet. Xiao! A swift light shot out from one of the mountain peaks, and appeared in the field in a flash. Lu Sanjun had come. He carried a person in his hand, and it was Shuozhan. Let's begin, he said indifferently. It was merely forging a cauldron, and he didn't even bother to take another look, so why waste time? Shuozhan, on the other hand, cracked his neck as if he was stretching his muscles, and then looked at Ling Han with a provocative gaze. Haha, can you block 3 of my moves? He was now bursting with confidence. With Lu Sanjun's help, he condensed 5 celestial cauldrons, making him an elite with 8 cauldrons now. Although after this battle, those 5 celestial cauldrons would disappear. There would still be seeds left behind. First, he set a small goal for himself, such as bookmarking. Chapter 3841. What a petty man. Ling Han smiled. Who do you think you are to strut around in front of me? Ha 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 ha. Shuizhan laughed. You're a frog in a well. You haven't reached this level yet, so you have no idea how powerful I am right now. He extended a finger. 1 finger is enough to defeat you. Ling Han put his hands behind his back. You're bragging to the heavens, but don't kneel in a fight. That'll be so embarrassing. Shuizhan's eyes were cold. He really wasn't Ling Han's match when it came to bickering, so it was better to fight directly. He believed in his own strength. He was so powerful that he seemed to be able to compete with a life core realm cultivator. Suppressing a 4-cauldron cultivator would be a piece of cake. Fine, he would beat this kid down first, then slowly humiliate him. Shuizhan made up his mind and walked towards Ling Han. As he walked, he released his cauldron. 1 sip, 2 sips, 3 sips, 4 sips. When he released the 4th cauldron, everyone couldn't help but exclaim. For cauldrons, even in the entire star web, there were only 1,000 people who could cultivate 4 cauldrons. This kind of strength was enough to be in the top 1,000. No matter which sect he went to, he would be qualified to be a Taoist. However, it wasn't over yet. Shuizhan released the 5th cauldron. Heavens! Everyone exclaimed. 5 cauldrons. Breaking through the limit was extremely difficult. This still wasn't Shuizhan's limit. He released the 6th cauldron. In fact, he could release all of them at once, but in order to achieve the greatest effect of showing off, he chose to do it one at a time. This was shocking. As expected, everyone exclaimed. 6 cauldrons. Perhaps even Gan Ping and Lin Qi only had this kind of strength. Then the 7th cauldron appeared. 7 cauldrons. Everyone's scalps went numb. They were speechless. No wonder Gan Ping said Ling Han was dead. 7 cauldrons. That was too terrifying. Do you think this is my limit? Shuizhan roared, and the 8th cauldron appeared. 8 cauldrons, the peak second only to 9 cauldrons. Everyone couldn't help but look at Lu Sanjun. Was this the strength of a sect master? It had only been a month, and he had raised a heaven cauldron to 8 cauldrons. No, Shuizhan has 5 immortal cauldrons. They were forcibly forged by Elder Lu's supreme power. It's impossible for them to last. So that's how it is. Otherwise, it would be too terrifying. Of course, if immortal cauldrons can be forged like this, then what's so strange about 8 or 9 cauldrons? You're right. However, this has left an imprint in Shuizhan's body. In the future, it will be 10 times, or even 100 times easier for him to forge a new immortal cauldron. This guy is really lucky. It can be considered a blessing in disguise. Everyone discussed animatedly, and there were always people with good eyesight and profound knowledge who spoke of Shuizhan's current situation. This made many people envious. Perhaps Shuizhan's limit was only 4 cauldrons, but after this incident, this guy's future limit might be 5 cauldrons, or even 6 cauldrons. After all, how could it be as simple as a temporary increase in battle prowess to injure a sect master level cultivator so greatly? Right now, Shuizhan was truly in high spirits and extremely pleased with himself. He felt that all the men were envious of him, and all the women were in love with him. This caused his vanity to expand endlessly. Kneel! He shouted loudly at Ling Han. His aura swept out like a raging wave. In the distance, many people felt their legs soften, and they almost knelt down. They couldn't help but be shocked. They were so far away, but they were still affected. This guy's strength was practically heaven-defying. However, Ling Han didn't move at all. Huh. Shuizhan revealed a look of surprise. Why was this guy not affected in the slightest? Kneel. Ling Han also spoke. Boom! A wave of baleful aura shot out. Shuizhan instantly felt his mind go blank, and then a strong chill arose. His legs involuntarily softened, and he knelt down. Pung! This kneel was extremely heavy, and the sound was loud and clear. Fuck, what was going on? Everyone was dumbfounded. Shuizhan was clearly awe-inspiring. With an 8 cauldron cultivation, he might not be invincible in all of the cast cauldrons, but there were very few people who could defeat him. However, in just the blink of an eye, Shuozhan knelt down. How could this not make people's eyeballs pop? However, the beautiful eyes of Tan Meng and the other two beauties were shining brightly. What they feared the most was a hothead like Ling Han. Such a person, whether as a subordinate, a partner, or a husband, would be an incredibly troublesome matter. Now it was proven that Ling Han wasn't arrogant at all, but he really had the strength. This was called self-confidence. Lu Sanjuan's face instantly darkened. He had worked hard for a month, even at the expense of his own vitality, to forcibly raise Shuozhan's cultivation to 8 cauldrons. He had thought that he could trample on Ling Han and save his face. Who would have thought that before they even fought, Shuozhan would first kneel down? Was there even a need to fight? Shuozhan immediately jumped up, his face flushed. He pointed at Ling Han and said, "You actually dare to use an artifact, despicable and shameless. Otherwise, how could a 4-cauldron cultivator make him lose control of his mind?" When everyone heard this, they all had doubts. Yes, this was a bit unbelievable. Could 4 cauldrons be so strong? Don't embarrass yourself anymore. Why haven't you made your move? But at this moment, Lu Sanjun shouted in a low voice. Whether or not he had used an artifact, how could he not know? It was really shameful. His skills were inferior, and he actually said that the other had used an artifact. His face was even uglier than when he was kneeling on the ground. When they heard Lu Sanjun say this, everyone naturally understood. Ling Han hadn't used an artifact, otherwise Lu Sanjun would definitely have made the first move. Without using an artifact, Ling Han could actually make 8 cauldrons kneel. This was too terrifying. It wasn't just Tan Meng and the 3 great beauties. Now, every female disciple was looking at Ling Han with eyes full of splendor. They couldn't wait to immediately do him and cook the raw rice into cooked rice. Shuozhan gritted his teeth, and with a loud roar, he charged towards Ling Han. The cultivation of 8 cauldrons was unleashed, and he was as terrifying as a great demon king. Unfortunately, with a glare from Ling Han, Shuozhan knelt down again. Everyone was speechless. Had he come to fight, or to perform kowtowing? Shuozhan roared again, leaped up, and charged towards Ling Han. Kneeling again. Pa. Shuozhan rose up again and again, but he knelt down again and again. This kind of scene played out continuously, and it actually gave people an incomparably comical feeling. Quite a few people were already laughing out loud. What kind of life and death battle was this? It was clearly a monkey show. Shuozhan was already beyond furious. Even if he could show off his invincible might and smash Ling Han into dregs, he would definitely become a laughingstock in the future, and he would be constantly mocked by others. Therefore, his killing intent soared to the heavens. He only had one thought, and that was to tear Ling Han into 1,000 pieces. Chapter 3842. Ling Han, do you dare fight me head-on? Shuozhan provoked. He didn't know what method the other party used. Although he was prepared, he still couldn't guard against it. He always knelt down disobediently. This was natural. This was an attack at the level of divine senses. Unless one's willpower was as firm as steel, otherwise, only the descendants of the Buddha race would be able to resist against a caste cauldron level. The 6 words Wisdom King mantra had outstanding defensive effects against spiritual attacks. Ling Han didn't want to continue acting like a monkey. He said indifferently, "Attack." Shuozhan's provocation succeeded, and he couldn't help but sneer. As long as he could unleash the battle prowess of 8 cauldrons, then he would have a crushing advantage against a 4-cauldron cultivator. Die! He rushed over and threw a punch. The battle of life and death prohibited all worldly possessions, but it didn't matter. His fists could crush everything. Ling Han shouted softly, and also shot out a punch. Bam! The 2 fists collided, instantly setting off a raging tide of energy, turning into a mushroom cloud that soared into the sky. However, the ground here was too solid. Even such an attack could only blast open a hole that was not very deep. Amidst the flashes of light, Ling Han and Shuozhan both stumbled back. What? No one dared to believe their eyes. Previously, when Shuozhan repeatedly knelt down, Everyone guessed that Ling Han had mastered a powerful secret method of telekinesis. But just now, it was a real confrontation of secret forces, and it was obvious who was stronger. But what did they see? The two of them were actually evenly matched. How is that possible? An 8-cauldron cultivator was actually unable to crush a 4-cauldron cultivator in terms of strength. Was there still justice in this world? Was there still law? Lu Sanjun couldn't help but look at Ling Han. Originally, he didn't even bother to pay attention to a casting cauldron, but now he was suddenly curious about this young man. With his sect leader level power, he naturally saw that there were 5 cauldrons in Ling Han's Sea of Consciousness, and one of them had just been forged. 5-cauldron primary stage. Even though he was 3 cauldrons weaker, he was not at a disadvantage at all. Although Shuezhan's 5 cauldrons were fake and temporary, in such a short period of time, there was not much difference between using them and using 8 cauldrons. Lu Sanjun looked again, and his expression became serious. What did he see? It was a stone-shaped immortal cauldron. 5 elements immortal cauldron apart from the bronze, silver and gold cauldrons. Some geniuses had other tricks up their sleeves. When casting the cauldron, they would integrate some special substances, or even the power of their bloodline, causing the cauldron to mutate. Hence, there would be the flame cauldron, the ice cauldron, and so on. The stone cauldron was not strange either. Perhaps Ling Han had the stone attribute innate divine body, but when he took a closer look, he immediately realized that something was wrong. This was no ordinary stone immortal cauldron. It was filled with a supreme aura, as if it was the king of immortal cauldrons. There was actually someone who could forge such an immortal cauldron. Lu Sanjun couldn't help but cherish talents. He almost had no hope of becoming a venerable in this life, but if he could nurture a venerable disciple, the sense of accomplishment wouldn't be any less than becoming a venerable himself. In fact, he felt that Ling Han would not only be a venerable in the future, but he might even become a sage. He didn't dare to think about becoming a martial emperor. Not only did it require talent, but it also required great opportunities and great luck. For example, the 9 Suns sage was known as the strongest sage, but didn't he still lose to ancestral King Ling Tian? How is this possible? Shuezhan roared, his face filled with disbelief. Nothing is impossible, Ling Han said indifferently. I'll send you on your way in 3 moves. Haha, you really know how to dream. Shuezhan laughed coldly, his killing intent boiling. This time, he definitely had to kill Ling Han. Otherwise, his strength would quickly disappear like the receding tide, and Ling Han would still be so powerful. Then wouldn't he be bullied miserably by Ling Han in the future? Thus, this was his only chance. Kill. In a battle of life and death, killing was not a crime. He roared loudly, and connected with a high-level energy. His entire body was instantly wrapped in flames, and it was as if he had transformed into a fire god. Die. He pounced out again, activating a powerful celestial technique. As he punched out, the power of his fist transformed into a giant firebird. Its entire body was covered in dense symbols, and it flew towards Ling Han. Ling Han was fearless, and he directly faced the firebird. Pong, his fist punched out, and the firebird directly collapsed. He charged out, activating so close, yet worlds apart under his feet, and he instantly appeared in front of Shuezhan. The Daluo Heaven Paragon technique was activated, and flames similarly coiled around it. Pung! Shuezhan was instantly sent flying. He hurriedly climbed up, and just as he was about to attack, he was shocked to find that his body was burning with flames. He hurriedly tried to extinguish the flames, but found that they were extremely stubborn and could not be extinguished. He was greatly shocked, but before he could finish his thought, he saw Ling Han charging over again. It was still the Daluo Heaven Paragon technique. Ling Han's hands turned into palms, fists, and claws, deriving the ultimate technique of the Jin clan. A series of attacks smashed down, and Shuezhan was instantly killed by him. Ling Han sighed inwardly. If he used the 3 moves of the war god, he should be able to finish him off in one blow. Sure enough, the gap between the venerable level paragon technique and the holy technique was still very, very large. But the scalps of the others were numb, and they were completely speechless. An 8-cauldron realm cultivator was killed by Ling Han head-on, just like that. Fair and square, without any excuses. Hiss, what kind of terrifying strength was this? Gan Ping Lin Qi, in front of such strength, even they had to kneel down and sing surrender. The eyes of all the beauties shone brilliantly. Even Tan Meng, and the other 2 beauties were no exception. How could such a man not be tempted? Outstanding alchemy skills, shocking formation ability, and now added with this domineering and matchless battle prowess. Even the most picky noble girl would have to let go of her reservations. Her love was like a tide, and she could not control herself. Unexpectedly, Lu Sanjun only took a deep look at Ling Han, and actually did not say a word, directly turning around and flying away. Strange, Yin Dong muttered in the crowd. This was not in line with old monster Lu's personality. He was already prepared to make a move lest Lu Sanjun kill Ling Han, in a rage out of humiliation. But he did not think that Lu Sanjun would actually directly leave. Ling Han walked back, and everyone immediately swarmed over. No matter if it was men or women, they were all incredibly enthusiastic. Senior brother Ling, they all called him, with a kind of worship that came from the very marrow. Ling Han smiled at them, but did not stay. He squeezed out of the crowd, and returned with the Empress, Hunyou, and the others. The Empress was proud, and did not pay any attention to anyone, while Hunyou turned around, and made a face at Tan Meng and the other 2 girls, meaning that Ling Han was Niu's, and they could forget about it. However, how could this possibly scare off Tan Meng and the other 2 girls? This is the husband I've been looking for. Not only is he skilled in both alchemy and formations, he is also extremely talented in martial art, and there is hope for him to become a saint in the future, Tan Meng thought. Furthermore, this guy has a glib tongue, so he should know how to flirt. If I'm with him, the rest of my life will definitely not be boring. Jiang Yifei and Jiang Xiu had similar thoughts. The 3 girls looked at each other, hostility rising in their hearts. They had not seen the Empress and Hunyou's true appearances, so they did not regard them as opponents at all. They only felt that the 2 in front of them were the greatest enemies. Cell phones were more refreshing to read. Chapter 3844. Ling Han was going to fight with Lin Qi. The news spread to every disciple through the Holy Land's network. In an instant, everyone moved out to watch this fierce battle between a dragon and a tiger. It was not a life-and-death battle, so the use of Dharma artifacts was not prohibited. However, the challenger could choose the time and place. Therefore, Ling Han's formation skills had been destroyed. How could he set up a formation in advance? It could be said that Lin Qi was quite smart. On one side was a descendant of the imperial family. Although he was not the most powerful descendant of the Lin family, he had the imperial blood in his body. Wasn't that enough? He was ranked 207th on the star web. That was the best indication of Lin Qi's strength. On the other side was a brilliant star. He came from an ordinary family, but he was very talented in martial art. He was a 4-cauldron, well 5-cauldron. The Holy Land later announced that Ling Han's cultivation was 5-cauldron, not 4-cauldron. Even so, it was still a fantasy that he could defeat an 8-cauldron. The battle between the 2 was bound to be very exciting. Early in the morning, the crowd came to the open space and waited for the 2 participants. Not long after, Ling Han and Lin Qi arrived at about the same time. Both of them were exactly on time, not a minute more, not a second less. Lin Qi put his hands behind his back and walked slowly to the center of the field. He had a faint smile on his face, but deep down he was very angry. He had always been dismissive of Ling Han. Why did he suddenly challenge him this time? It was simple, beautiful. He had always been pursuing Jiang Yifei, while Gan Ping had his eyes on Tan Meng. This was no secret. However, Jiang Yifei was cold and indifferent towards him, and acted as if she did not see his attentiveness. Yet she still went to Ling Han's place every day. How could he not be furious? Therefore, he wanted to take this opportunity to humiliate Ling Han, and let Jiang Yifei know that he was worthy of her attention. When it came to women, even a descendant of the imperial family like Lin Qi, a genius ranked 207th on the star web, was confused and could not think calmly. Ling Han, come and see how I defeat you, he said calmly, showing his contempt for Ling Han. Ling Han smiled faintly and strode forward to greet him. Lin Qi took out a sword that was green in color. It was a replica of the Lin family's imperial weapon, and also a standard ritual implement. All the important successors had one. The levels of the ritual implements varied according to their realms. However, one shouldn't look at how this was an imitation artifact. When an emperor clan took action, how could it be ordinary? This jade water sword was one of the best among the current cauldron forging magic tools. Other than the standard magic tools of the emperor clan, all other magic tools would be unable to withstand a single blow from it. Why? Because this jade water sword was forged next to an emperor weapon. It had a trace of an emperor weapon's aura. Just this was enough. Who in the world could resist an imperial weapon? If you don't want to suffer, I'll allow you to surrender, he said calmly. Ling Han laughed heartily and said, I really didn't expect you to be an expert in telling jokes. Lin Qi wasn't infuriated. He wasn't a match for Gan Ping on the star web, but he believed that he would be able to win in the real world. This was because the star web battle excluded all external factors, such as ritual implements and talisman soldiers. This was fair and unfair at the same time. I'm a descendant of the emperor clan. Why can't I crush you with resources? How long can you be so stubborn? Lin Qi said calmly. In the face of absolute power, you're just a clown. Ling Han shook his head. The more disdainful you sound now, the more face you'll lose when the time comes. That's impossible. Lin Qi was brimming with confidence. He slashed with the jade water sword in his hand, and shwa, a flash of sword chi sliced towards Ling Han. It turned into a green ribbon, and there was a frightening brilliance flickering on it. Ling Han opened the starlight screen and took the attack head-on. Pung! The sword chi slashed past, and the starlight screen instantly shattered. However, the power of the sword chi was also exhausted. Ling Han was slightly astonished. The might of this spirit tool was quite strong, actually being able to slash open his screen of starlight with a single strike. However, Lin Qi was even more shocked. He knew the background of the jade water sword, but his opponent took the attack head-on and only broke the protective shield. He wasn't injured, which made his heart tremble. I can't underestimate him. I can't underestimate him. This kid is really a demon. Alarm bells rang loudly in his mind, but his expression was calm. Moreover, he indeed had the right to do so. He had broken through Ling Han's strongest defense with a single strike. The jade water sword was indeed worthy of being a replica of an emperor weapon. Again, Lin Qi waved his sword. Shwa shwa shwa. A streak of sword chi slashed over. A green waterfall filled the sky, and a terrifying aura was condensing. This was the aura of the emperor weapon, but it was too thin. With every slash of the sword, this aura would increase. When it reached a certain level, it would eventually crush everything. At least, no one in the cast tripod realm would be a match for it. Therefore, the jade water sword was the strongest two-star ritual implement. Apart from the replica of the emperor weapon, there was no match for it. Ling Han activated his ocular sorcery and jumped in the sword chi, which was like a big net. He dodged every sword chi perfectly. It could be said to be a kind of art, which was very pleasing to the eyes. Lin Qi sneered. The attack of the sword chi was just the surface. The real killer move was the aura of the emperor weapon, which no cast tripod could resist. After dodging a few moves, Ling Han didn't feel annoyed anymore. He directly attacked head-on, opened the starlight screen, and took the sword chi head-on. When the starlight screen was broken, he bombarded it with his fist. At this moment, he was more barbaric, violent, and direct than Wu Qiyuan. Lin Qi sneered and stretched out his hand to press at Ling Han. It seemed that this palm was ordinary, but he used the aura of the emperor weapon and turned it into an indestructible dark blade. Ling Han immediately felt a strong chill. It was an intuition of danger. He jumped and didn't face head-on. You can't withstand a single blow, Lin Qi said disdainfully, but in his heart, he secretly lamented that it was a pity. If this palm had hit its mark, then with the destructive power of the aura of the emperor weapon, Ling Han would have been seriously injured, and even left with a permanent sequela. Ling Han's eyes were fixed on the aquamarine long sword. He had a feeling that all this was because of that sword. Since Lin Qi was from the Emperor clan, this should be a replica of the Emperor weapon, and its power was naturally extraordinary. If he was a little more patient, he could definitely take down Lin Qi. But he didn't want to drag the fight for so long. I will finish you in 3 seconds, Ling Han said calmly. Lin Qi couldn't help but laugh. What a big joke. You are at a complete disadvantage now, and I am the only one who can beat you. Finish me in 3 seconds? What a joke. But Ling Han didn't mean to joke at all. His body moved, and he charged at Lin Qi. You are seeking death. Lin Qi slashed with his sword, and at the same time, he was ready to attack with his left palm, waiting to see how Ling Han would respond. Of course, Ling Han charged head-on. Pung! The starlight screen collapsed, but he also broke through the sword Qi and charged at Lin Qi. Lin Qi sneered, and his left hand slapped out. The aura of the Emperor weapon was hidden, and the destructive power of this palm increased infinitely. Chapter 3845. A Beautiful Romance. The chaotic Polaris Thunder Pagoda came out. Ling Han took out a quasi-emperor weapon. If even a future emperor weapon could not block his opponent's attack, then he would admit defeat. Two powerful auras collided. This was a confrontation between two emperor-level beings. However, Ling Han charged over unscathed. The aura of chaos fell, and he looked like an invincible god of war. No matter what, how could a replica with a hint of the aura of an emperor weapon fight against the Mother Gold? What cultivation level was Ling Han at? The chaotic Polaris Thunder Pagoda was the most powerful ritual implement of this level. Only a ritual implement made of Mother Gold could fight against it. Unfortunately, the jade water sword in Lin Qi's hand was only a replica. Ling Han charged over. With a sizzling sound, the light of thunder shot wildly toward Lin Qi. How could Lin Qi resist it? He was instantly hit head-on. Pa! The jade water sword in his hand bore the brunt of the attack and instantly exploded. In front of the Mother Gold, all ritual implements would feel inferior. This was the might of an emperor. Lin Qi looked bewildered. What was going on? This was a replica of an emperor weapon. How could it be so vulnerable? While he was in a trance, Ling Han's fist also smashed over. Pung! Lin Qi was instantly sent flying. All of this happened in a flash. No one could react. Most people were still marveling at the awesomeness of Lin Qi's ritual implement. They did not expect that in the blink of an eye, the outcome of the battle was almost decided. Sure enough, it was only 3 seconds. Could Lin Qi, who had lost his ritual implement, still have the strength to fight? Lin Qi climbed up. Under the bombardment of the power of thunder, a large part of his clothes had been torn. Fortunately, his skin had been charred black by the electricity, so he was not afraid of being exposed. His situation was not good. Wounds were all over his body. These were all caused by the chaotic Polaris Thunder Pagoda. The fact that he was not directly killed showed his strength. He panted heavily and looked at the chaotic Polaris Thunder Pagoda in shock. What kind of ritual implement was this? It was too terrifying. Ling Han put away the chaotic Polaris Thunder Pagoda and said calmly, I won't bully you. Seeing this, everyone secretly nodded. Lin Qi took out his celestial implement as soon as he came up. It was obvious that he wanted to rely on the power of the jade water sword. However, Ling Han's celestial implement was obviously more powerful, but he immediately put it away and did not use it. Ling Han already possessed the demeanor of an expert, because every expert walked the path of their own strength. Which one of them would rely on external objects? Lin Qi looked at Ling Han hatefully. He had been defeated in front of so many people. This was a humiliation that he could never wash away. You've angered me, he said coldly. Originally, he was extremely afraid of Ling Han's tower-shaped ritual implement, but now that Ling Han had put it away, he naturally had a chance of winning. He let out a great roar, and his blood and qi surged. There was also an indescribably powerful pressure, as if all the stars in the sky had to bow before him. This was because he had burned his emperor's blood. Although it was only a trace, what kind of existence was the great emperor? Even if it was extremely thin, it was still extremely terrifying. Lin Qi's eyes emitted a white light that was burning fiercely. He looked at Ling Han coldly, which was a kind of disregard on the level of life. At this moment, Lin Qi was like the great emperor when he was in the cast tripod realm. Who could resist him? Bang! Lin Qi took a step forward. It was not heavy, but everyone felt as if their hearts had been hit hard, and their faces turned pale. The arc is aura. Ling Han finally became interested. Now Lin Qi seemed to be possessed by the great emperor, and his combat power would have a tremendous change. The great emperor was invincible, but could he also be so at the cast tripod realm? Ling Han did not believe it. Back then, the Saint of Nine Sons had even defeated the later ancestral king Ling Tian. Therefore, even the great emperor might not be invincible throughout his life. It could only be said that after attaining the Tao, he would truly be unparalleled in the world. Come, let's fight. Ling Han laughed and blasted towards Lin Qi. Bang, bang, bang. Lin Qi did not flinch at all. He began to exchange blows with Ling Han. All kinds of immortal skills were used at the right time, and it was too wonderful for words. However, due to the limitation of his cultivation level, Lin Qi could not use the Emperor skill. At most, he could burst out a little, but this kind of burst naturally had to be saved for the most crucial moment. If he did not use it to win in one strike, he would use it to save his life. The two of them fought, and the treasured skills collided. It was brilliant. Lin Qi is burning his emperor's blood, which is equivalent to turning into a young great emperor. His combat power is really fierce. But the problem is that Ling Han does not have emperor's blood, and he can still withstand it. SSS. To be able to fight against a young great emperor. If this guy doesn't die, he might become a sage in the future. Become a sage. This was an unattainable peak. Even among the emperor clans, how many people could reach the sage realm? But Ling Han could fight against a young great emperor. His potential was really shocking, which was why he was so highly evaluated and had the potential to become a sage. As long as Ling Han can hold on, the one who will lose will definitely be Lin Qi. Everyone nodded. The current Lin Qi was not so powerful by himself. He was relying on burning his emperor's blood, which could only be maintained for a limited time, and the cooldown period was shockingly long. He could not do it again so soon. Therefore, as long as they fought a protracted battle, Ling Han would definitely win. Lin Qi obviously knew that, and he finally could not hold back anymore. With a shrill cry, he clasped his fingers together and formed a circle. Then he aimed at Ling Han. Xiao, a beam of light blasted out. Instantly, everyone was blinded, and they could not see anything. This was an emperor skill, and even he had only learned one move. However, an emperor skill was an emperor skill, and it was invincible among those of the same cultivation level. Ling Han did not dare to be careless. Now, it was as if Lin Qi had been possessed by a great emperor, and he was not weaker than him. Now that he had used an emperor skill, he had to go all out. Go! He also used the demon monkey fist and blasted it out. A demon monkey with endless hostility appeared, and met the beam of light. Bang! In the loud noise, a large number of symbols exploded. Light surged and shot up into the sky, turning into a huge mushroom cloud. Looking at Ling Han and Lin Qi, they were both wounded. The emperor skills had collided and destroyed each other, but both of them were still injured. Fortunately, they were not seriously injured. Without a trace of hesitation, the two of them charged at each other again. Bang, bang, bang. The battle was extremely intense, but without the explosion of emperor skills, neither of them could kill the other instantly. They were in a stalemate. However, not long after the battle, Lin Qi's momentum plummeted. His emperor's blood had been used up. There was nothing more to say. Under the powerful attack of Ling Han, Lin Qi was quickly defeated. He did not say a word and left dejectedly. It was really embarrassing. Not only had his ritual implement been destroyed, but he had even used his last resort, burning his emperor's blood, and still suffered a crushing defeat. How could he still argue? Ling Han, on the other hand, frowned slightly. This was only a member of the emperor clans, and he was not even the strongest descendant. However, after burning his emperor's blood, he was actually able to fight evenly with him. There were so many emperor clans in the world. If 2 or 3 of them joined forces, wouldn't he be in a very passive position? No, he had to become stronger. Chapter 3846. Ling Han was overthinking things. Even the Tharch clan could only burn their Tharch blood a limited number of times in their lives. After the Tharch blood was burned, it would slowly recover, but it would be slower and slower until there was no more Tharch blood to burn. Moreover, what was Lin Qi's cultivation level? He had 6 cauldrons now. Even with the advantage of 1 cauldron, he still couldn't defeat Ling Han. What did that mean? Ling Han was stronger than young Thearchs of the same level, even if it was just a little bit. If Ling Han also had 6 cauldrons, would it still be a draw if he fought with Lin Qi after burning his Tharch blood? After this battle, Ling Han's position as the number 1 among the young disciples was completely established. Lin Qi had suffered a crushing defeat, so what if Gan Ping was there? He could only bear the grudge. Of course, Gan Ping wouldn't admit this, but he didn't say anything about how Ling Han couldn't be considered a hit either. However, the front door of Ling Han's residence became even more lively. The male disciples all came over to curry favor with him, while the female disciples, on the other hand, were full of tenderness. They wanted nothing more than to drug Ling Han and push him down instead. If Ling Han was a bit more promiscuous, he could be a groom every night and sleep with the beautiful disciples of the sacred ground. However, he naturally wasn't that kind of person, so he could only resist. Stunning beauties like Tan Meng and Jiang Yifei also made others envious and jealous. The following days became peaceful. Everyone made the best use of their time to cultivate, while searching for the god-slaying art that the Saint of Nine Sun had hidden. This was the true reason why everyone had entered the Nine Sun sacred ground. Once they obtained the god-slaying art, they would be able to obtain the Nine Sun finger and gain control of a huge faction. In the future, they would be able to use a saint weapon to fight against others. If there was anything that happened, it was that Lin Qi took back the title of Dao Disciple, which made many people laugh their heads off. Before they knew it, everyone had been in the sacred ground for a year. At this time, many people arrived at the gate of the sacred ground, waiting for the sacred ground to open its gates again to recruit the second batch of disciples. Quick, go and see the beauties, someone posted on the Sacred Grounds network. Peerless beauties. No matter the time, a beautiful woman would always be able to attract people's attention and excite them. Thus, many people went to watch the disciple recruitment ceremony. As a result, there was a heated discussion on the internet. There's really a beauty here. She's even more beautiful than Fairy Tan and Fairy Jia. What kind of joke is that? Fairy Tan and the others are all on the beauty rankings. Ehe, why don't you go and take a look for yourself? This aroused the curiosity of many people, and all of them went to have a look. In the end, all the people that went to have a look felt unanimously that this woman's beauty was something even Tan Meng's group of 3 couldn't compare to. Of course. Do you know who she is? Someone said disdainfully. Who? Number 9 on the beauty rankings, Song Lan. What? After learning of this stunning woman's identity, everyone was shocked, but they also felt that it was only natural. She was ranked 9th on the beauty rankings, so of course she was a peerless beauty. Hey, don't have any delusions. The beauty ranked 9th on the rankings isn't someone you can touch. Can't I even think about it? Hey, do you know who accompanied Song Lan here? Who? Lu Qi. His for a moment, everyone was silent. Who's Lu Qi? He was ranked 19th on the Star Web Cauldron Forging list. One had to know that in order to get into the top 100 of the rankings, there would be a considerable difference in strength for every 10 ranks. Lu Qi was ranked 19th on the Star Web, which meant that he was much stronger than Gan Ping. It was said that he had already cultivated 8 cauldrons. The 8 cauldrons that he had cultivated himself were completely different from the 8 cauldrons that Shuizhan had cultivated temporarily by other experts. If the two were to fight, Lu Qi would probably be able to crush Shuizhan with a single slap. No way, a monster in the top 20 of the Star Web actually joined the Sacred Land? Hehe, it's because Lu Qi is pursuing Song Lan. Since Song Lan is here, Of course Lu Qi is here as well. Ehe, there's going to be a good show to watch, someone said meaningfully. Ling Han was currently the #1 disciple of this generation. But the situation was different now that Lu Qi was here. Would it be a battle between two heroes? Or would Ling Han quietly leave the stage? Ling Han only smiled faintly after hearing this, and didn't take it to heart. Perhaps Lu Qi was indeed stronger than him now, but he was only in the late stage of the 5 cauldrons. As long as he raised his realm, he would be able to defeat someone of the same level. Moreover, he had many trump cards, such as the 3 Trigram Aquarius Array, and the Chaotic Polaris Thunder Pagoda. Any one of them could kill any cast cauldron. After a few days of the assessment, Lu Qi and Song Lan naturally entered the sacred land without any suspense. There were other monsters in this batch, such as Su Wenbai and Ji Yuanbai, who were all ranked in the top 100 of the star web. In terms of beauties, there was actually another beauty on the beauty ranking, Du Qingqing, who had also entered the sacred land. However, because of Song Lan's existence, she naturally paled in comparison. With the addition of this batch of disciples, the sacred land instantly became lively. These 2 batches of people naturally formed their own teams. The first batch thought that they were seniors and had seniority, but the ones who came later were naturally dissatisfied. They had been divided into 10 batches of disciples, so naturally, they were considered one batch. How could they become seniors a year earlier? Also, what did martial art look at? Strength. Thus, the disciples of the 2 batches naturally broke out into battle. Because the number of people was about the same, and their strength was also about the same, there was no clear winner after a few battles. In the end, it was the Law Hall that came out and forbade this kind of large-scale group battle. Otherwise, they would be expelled from the sect. Ling Han only wanted to cultivate in peace. He wasn't in the mood to compete for first or second place. He paid no attention to the outside world. And even if the large black dog tried to instigate him again and again, he completely ignored it. But sometimes things were like this. You didn't want to stir up trouble, but trouble would come knocking on your door. Ling Han was in the midst of concocting pills when he heard the sound of knocking on his door. If it were another alchemist, after being disturbed like this, the cauldron of pills would probably be ruined. However, Ling Han was the alchemy emperor, and he had concocted the cauldron heart pill countless times. He could still multitask and control it. He asked, "What is it?" He was already slightly angry. He had already instructed that when he was concocting pills, no one was to disturb him. "Master, an unwelcome guest has come. I have clearly told him that you are in the middle of concocting pills, and cannot see him, yet he still broke the door. He even said that he would only wait for 3 minutes. After 3 minutes he will barge in," Mingyu said in a low voice. She was slightly aggrieved, but also revealed a strong anger. Ever since Ling Han had been crowned with the title of the strongest disciple, who would dare to be so rude? Ling Han continued to concoct pills, and said, "Ignore him." "Understood." Mingyu nodded. Pung. Indeed, after a short while a loud sound rang out. That unwelcome guest should have grown impatient from waiting, and had barged in forcefully. Chapter 38-48. What? You want me to compensate you? Chahu felt a little dizzy. He had been beaten up and was riddled with wounds. Who knew how many bones in his body had been broken or even broken? Shouldn't Ling Han be the one compensating him? First of all, it's the door. I'll give you a little cheaper. Let's make it 100 stones. Ling Han began to calculate. Chahu immediately raised his head and looked at Ling Han. Your door is made of immortal gold, and it's worth 100 Dao stones? You're deliberately extorting money. Pa. Ling Han slapped him across the face and said coldly, "Do you have any objections?" Yes, but he didn't dare to say it. Chahu lowered his head and thought to himself, no matter what Ling Han said now, he would not object anymore. In any case, once he got away, he would just ignore it. In the future, there would naturally be Lu Qi to take care of Ling Han. A mere alchemist actually dared to make an enemy out of his master. He was truly courting death. You destroyed the house too. Ling Han continued to calculate. Cheaper, even if you have 900 Dao stones, round it up. Let's make it 1,000. Damn it, is there such a way to round it up? Chahu wanted to refute, but when he saw Ling Han's fierce gaze, he obediently shut his mouth. And my furnace of pills a little cheaper. I'll just take it as 100,000 Dao stones. Ling Han said again. Isn't your furnace of pills not bad? Chahu could not hold it in any longer. He naturally had to argue. Pa! Ling Han gave him a slap across the face. You charged over and made a move like that, which alchemists wouldn't explode their cauldrons. I didn't explode because of my ability. I used my own ability to save an alchemical pill. So what does that have to do with you? What he said made sense. It was simply impossible to refute. Chahu actually wanted to retort. What kind of pill are you concocting? One furnace is actually worth 100,000 Dao stones. Extortion, blatant extortion. Endure it. Once he gets away, he won't admit it. I won't bother with you about the other furniture. I'll have to trouble you to pay 101,100 Dao stones. Hurry up and pay. Ling Han extended his hand. Chahu shook his head. Nope. Ling Han smiled. It's okay if you don't have cash. I support universe dollar transfers here. Chahu's face couldn't help but turn black. You're really thoughtful. I don't have that much money, he said weakly. No. Ling Han's expression instantly changed, and he stopped smiling. Pung, he threw a punch at him. Think about it carefully. Punch after punch, under the unceasing bombardment. Chahu finally could not hold on anymore. Yes, I do. He connected to the star web and transferred money to Ling Han's account. But it was only 73,000 universe credits. I really only have this much, he said with a sad face. He was only a tripod caster, and he was Lu Qi's subordinate. How much savings could he have? Pauper Ling Han thought for a moment. It's okay. I'll ask your master for the rest. Chahu quickly lowered his head to hide the excitement on his face. Go ask Lu Qi for money. Ha ha ha, aren't you walking right into a trap? Go quickly. Get lost. Ling Han flew up and kicked Chahu away. Then, he went to the Holy Palace to apply. This room was broken, so he naturally had to change it. However, the Holy Palace directly arranged a cave abode for him. What was the difference between it and an ordinary room? There was an array in the cave abode that could absorb the energy of heaven and earth to speed up cultivation. It also had a protective function. As long as the owner didn't allow it, outsiders couldn't enter, unless they had the strength of a sect master. Since there was such a good thing, why didn't they take it out earlier? Because the number of such cave abodes was limited, the Holy Palace hadn't decided who to give it to. However, since Ling Han's room was broken, they went with the flow and arranged a cave abode for him. Such generosity must have been pushed by someone behind the scenes. Ling Han immediately went to find Yen Dong to express his gratitude, but the result surprised him. It was because the one who really put in a lot of effort in this matter was Lu Sanjun. This person was extremely senior in the Holy Palace, and was close to the end of his lifespan, so everyone had to give him some face. In addition, Ling Han was indeed a monster. He excelled in martial arts, alchemy, and array formations. Such a talent naturally needed to be nurtured. Therefore, the Holy Palace simply did him a favor, and let Ling Han live in the cave abode first. Lu Sanjun must have been too shocked, and his brain was damaged. In this old man's opinion, it should be curmudgeon Lu's love for talent, Yin Dong said seriously. Previously, when Xue Zhan was defeated and killed, Lu Sanjun surprisingly didn't make things difficult for him. At that time, he had already suspected it. In addition to this matter, he was completely sure that Lu Sanjun really admired Ling Han very much. Moreover, people like Lu Sanjun were eccentric and easily went to extremes. If he hated someone, then he hated them very much. However, if he admired someone, then he also admired them very much. For example, although Yen Dong also admired Ling Han, he would never slap the table in public and stand up for Ling Han to live in a cave abode with many people. This old man was interesting. Ling Han decided to pay a visit to this powerful figure. The other party had done him such a big favor, so he should go and thank him. He said goodbye to Yen Dong, and then went to see Lu Sanjun. After so long, Lu Sanjun naturally had a new Dao child, who was only 15 or 16 years old. However, when the young man saw Ling Han, his face suddenly turned pale. As he retreated, he said, "Don't kill me. Don't kill me." Ling Han's face couldn't help but darken. Damn, did he really have to go that far? He did kill one of Lu Sanjuan's Dao children, but it was not to the extent that he had to fight with Lu Sanjuan's Dao children and kill them every time he saw one. "Don't worry, I won't kill you," said Ling Han. Only then did the Dao child breathe a sigh of relief, but immediately said weakly, "Will you eat me? Where the hell did you hear that? Am I a man-eating demon?" Ling Han sighed. "Don't worry, I don't eat people either." "You didn't lie to me." The Dao child was still worried. Ling Han had an urge to beat someone up. Damn, who was it that was behind him and spreading rumors about him? When did he become a murderous demon, a man-eating monster? "No, I didn't," he said word by word. Only then did the Dao child breathe a sigh of relief and pat his chest. "Now I can rest assured." With that, he turned around and walked up the mountain. Hey, don't go," Ling Han hurriedly called out. The Dao child turned around, and his face turned pale again. "Are you still going to eat me?" "No, I have something to discuss with Elder Lu," Ling Han said. He was feeling a little frantic in his heart. These words should have been said at the first instant. "Oh, you're here to see Elder Lu, not to eat me." The Dao child was even more relieved. Ling Han waved his hand. "Go and report." He turned around and didn't look at the Dao child, afraid that he couldn't help but beat him up. "Oh!" The Dao child finally turned around and went up the mountain, not changing the topic. After a while, a thought sounded in Ling Han's mind. Come. It was Lu Sanjun. Chapter 3849. Ling Han was climbing the mountain. Some elders lived in the holy palace, but some chose to live on the mountain for peace and quiet. Lu Sanjun was one of the latter. Ling Han came to the top of the mountain and saw a thatched cottage. It didn't take up much space, and he couldn't tell at all that this was the residence of a sect master level elite. "What are you doing here?" Lu Sanjun walked out of the house. "Do you want to kill my Taoist boy again?" The Taoist boy from before was following behind him. When he heard this, he couldn't help but shrink his neck and hide behind Lu Sanjun. Fuck, it must be this old man who spread rumors that he was a murderous demon and a man-eating monster. Ling Han was speechless. He glanced at the Taoist boy, and he was so scared that he hurriedly retracted his head that had just popped out, as if he would die if Ling Han met his eyes. "Senior, I'm here to express my gratitude." He clasped his hands together. Lu Sanjun said coldly, "So you scared my Taoist boy to this extent?" The Taoist boy hurriedly nodded. "It was too scary." Ling Han's face darkened. "All of this was deliberately slandered by you. Moreover, this Taoist boy was too timid." "How could that be?" "Senior, you've misunderstood." He smiled. He knew that Lu Sanjun was probably still embarrassed, because Ling Han had indeed killed his Taoist boy. Even if he changed his mind out of love for talent, what about his face? Thus, he had to be cold and indifferent towards Ling Han, and act like a loaded cannon. Now that he knew this, things would be easier. Ling Han was someone who hung out with the large black dog. He had a glib tongue, and could play Tai Chi too well. With a few words of praise, a smile slowly appeared on Lu Sanjun's cold face. This scared the Taoist boy. If Lu Sanjun was bewitched by Ling Han, what would he do? Would he be steamed or braised? Ling Han and Lu Sanjun talked for a long time, and he also got to know this old man again. That's right, Lu Sanjun was indeed headstrong and self-opinionated, but he was not a bad person. Previously, he trusted Xue Bingyuan too much, and always thought that the people around him would not deceive him. Finally, the old man told Ling Han that if he encountered any problems during cultivation, he could come to him immediately. If he encountered any trouble, he could also come to him. Ling Han thanked him and went down the mountain. Unless he really encountered an opponent he could not match, otherwise, Ling Han would not use this relationship. Moreover, would Lu Sanjun still appreciate him if he went to look for Lu Sanjun whenever he had trouble? Ling Han went to the new cave abode. He had grasped the core of the array formation, and in the future, only he could control this cave abode. The abode wasn't big, and it was only big enough for him and a child. Thus, it was unrealistic to expect the Empress and the others to come and share the benefits brought about by the formations here. He used the communication device to inform everyone of his new residence. Instantly, not only did the Empress and the others come, but even Tan Meng, Jiang Yifei, and the other beauties also came to congratulate him. They were full of tenderness, and the attacks of tenderness came again. Just at this moment of joy and harmony, an uninvited guest suddenly came to visit. Which one is Ling Han? It was a young man in his early 20s. He was tall and slender, but not thin or weak at all. He looked like a cheetah, and could explode with terrifying power at any time. What is it? Ling Han asked. So you are Ling Han? The young man showed a proud smile. You don't have 3 arms or 4 legs, do you? These words were filled with a strong provocation. Wuxia walked out, and stretched out his arm. Are you asking for a beating? Xiao, the young man dashed out, his speed astonishingly fast. In an instant, he had already charged in front of Wuxia, and struck out a palm strike at his left shoulder. This strike was too fast, and even Wuxia was unable to dodge it. However, this guy was born with a fondness for hand-to-hand combat, so he did not panic at all. He also threw a punch at the young man. Pung! The two of them exchanged blows, and then both retreated. Wuxia's strike was slightly heavier, but his physique was strong, so he had neutralized most of the force. Thus, his injuries should be about the same as the young man's. The young man was slightly unwilling to accept this. He had clearly taken the initiative, and attacked when Wuxia was unprepared. But in the end, both of them were injured. Only then did he retract his arrogance and said, I am Cheng Bao, and I am here on the orders of my master. He wants you to, he pointed at Ling Han. Immediately go to my master and offer a humble apology. The time limit is 1 day. If you do not comply, my master will be very angry. Trust me, you definitely do not want to see my master angry. And your master is? Yuan Tian asked, although he already had the answer in his heart. Lu Qi, Cheng Bao said proudly. As expected, it was the guy ranked 19th on the star web. Alright, that's all I have to say. Take care. Cheng Bao laughed loudly, and then swaggered off. Arrogant, truly arrogant. Ling Han. Everyone looked towards Ling Han. The opponent this time was too strong. He was ranked 19th on the star web, and it was said that he had already formed 8 celestial cauldrons. This kind of strength could crush Shuizhan by many times, and he was much stronger than Lin Qi. How could Ling Han resist? It's fine. We'll deal with it when it comes. Ling Han smiled, and everyone felt relieved. Why don't we make a sneaky move tonight and cripple that brat? The large black dog suggested. Everyone's expression darkened. What kind of stupid idea was this? Did he really think that the great elites of the Holy Land were all useless? However, this matter ended in an unexpected way. Song Lan appeared and interceded with Lu Qi on behalf of Ling Han. Since the beauty he liked had appeared, Lu Qi naturally had to give her face, and said that this matter was temporarily over. After all, wasn't Lu Qi's face still important? As for how long this temporary situation would last, it would depend on Lu Qi's mood. Ling Han also felt that it was strange. He clearly didn't know this beauty Song Lan, so why would she intercede for him? However, Song Lan seemed to have forgotten about this matter, and only casually persuaded him, not taking it to heart at all. For the time being, everything returned to normal. Everyone was searching for the whereabouts of the god-slaying art, but tens of millions of years had passed, and no one had found it. How could they find it so easily now? However, no one gave up, because it was very likely that the Nine-Sun Saint was the strongest saint in history. His nine-sun finger was unparalleled, and there were few who could match him. How powerful would the god-slaying art that the Nine-Sun Saint had painstakingly researched in his later years be? Even if it was only a legend, everyone was still searching tirelessly, unwilling to give up. Ling Han, an ancient cave abode of a spirit transformation true lord, has been discovered recently. Do you want to go and explore it? Yuan Tian came to find him. Oh. Ling Han was slightly puzzled and asked, why are you interested? It wasn't that he was arrogant, But the celestial techniques that they had obtained in the Holy Land were at least at the level of a spirit transformation true lord. There was absolutely no need for them to explore the cave abode of a spirit transformation true lord, right? Chapter 3850. A normal spirit transformation true lord's abode is obviously not worth exploring. But this one is different. Yuan Tian shook his head. Because this spirit transformation true lord is also a great alchemist, high-level earth grade. Ling Han finally gave an "oh," revealing an interested expression. What, are you tempted? Yuan Tian smiled. Yes indeed. Ling Han nodded. What he was interested in was obviously not the pill, but the pill recipe. Even if he was willing to spend money, it was impossible to buy all the pill recipes on the star web, because some pills were not difficult to refine. But the demand was great, so pill recipes became treasures that would never be leaked. This was profit. Thus, if Ling Han wanted more pill recipes, finding the abode of an ancient alchemist like this should be a very good way out. That spirit transformation true lord is called Sun Quan, and it's been almost 3,000 years since he passed, Yuan Tian said. AI, it's been too long. Most of the pills have probably deteriorated and can't be used anymore. Where did you get this information? Ling Han asked. The Star Web. There are people who specialize in selling this kind of information, Yuan Tian said. Yuan Tian said, we have to hurry up. If we're late, then we won't be able to get anything. Okay. Ling Han nodded. Encountering this kind of thing, it was time to show friendship. Yuan Tian went to call Wuxia, and after thinking, called Huang Lingyun and Mulong as well. Because the Empress, the big black dog, and the others were at the crucial stage of forging the cauldron, Ling Han did not call them. The group of 5 set off, heading towards Sun Quan's ancient abode. This Sun Quan was actually quite famous. Although he was only a high-level earth-grade alchemist, he had grasped a few pill recipes that had long been lost in the world. Thus, the alchemical pills that he concocted were very popular. No matter where he went, he would be treated as a distinguished guest. However, he had never accepted a disciple in his life. Thus, after his death, those pill recipes were once again lost in the world. If they could find those lost pill recipes, they would naturally make a lot of money. They naturally did not think of using pill recipes to make money, because Ling Han knew how to refine pills, so they naturally hid the pill recipes to maximize their profits. Of course, the prerequisite was that they could obtain the pill recipe. Information about Sun Quan's cave abode had already been sold on the Star Web. Therefore, there should be quite a number of people who would go there to try their luck. There might even be Life Core Realm and True Self Realm experts. Therefore, whether or not Ling Han's group would be able to gain anything was another matter. Therefore, time was very precious now. This ancient cave abode wasn't on the 9 Sun star, but on a celestial body that wasn't too far away. Of course, this not far was in terms of interstellar units. If he were to fly there with his physical body, it would take at least a few decades. Fortunately, there was a teleportation array that could reach there directly. After the 5 of them paid the Tao stones, with a flash of light, they appeared on another planet. This celestial body was completely dark blue. It was not as wide as the sea, but there was a type of dark blue plant growing everywhere, covering the entire celestial body. Therefore, if one looked at it from the stars, this celestial body would appear to be the color of the sea. As soon as they stepped out of the teleportation array, they immediately discovered the bustling scene. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The teleportation array was constantly glowing. Almost every moment, there were people coming over. In the end, in order to prevent the teleportation array from being overused and broken, the person in charge here had no choice but to shut down the teleportation array, so that the array base could rest for a while. Hiss, these people should all be here for Sun Quan's cave abode. Ling Han opened his eye technique to take a look, and his heart couldn't help but shudder. There was no lack of Life Core Realm experts among them. Once he encountered such a competitor, unless he set up the 3 trigram Aquarius array in advance, Ling Han would have to use the Heaven Tao Flame in the chaotic Extreme Thunder Tower. Let's go. The 5 of them hurried on their way. With their speed, They only took half a day to arrive at Sun Quanga's cave abode. This place was hidden in a mountain. It was originally protected by an array, but Sun Quango had been cultivating for 3,000 years, and the power of heaven and earth was slowly changing. Therefore, the array gradually lost its effect, allowing this ancient cave abode to appear in front of everyone. One could clearly see the two words Sun Residence written on the door of the cave abode. Combined with the information that Sun Quango had indeed lived on this celestial body in his later years, there was a basis to confirm that this was Sun Quanga's cave abode. However, no one entered at the moment. This was because the array protecting Sun Quango was divided into two parts. One part was a camouflage array, which had already lost its effect. The other part was a defensive array. Once someone intruded, it would immediately launch an attack. It was extremely swift and fierce, and even Life Core Realm experts wouldn't be able to withstand it. Currently, no true Self-Realm experts had arrived, so there was no way to forcefully break the array. They could only invite an array master. Ling Han, you're an array master, right? Yuan Tian asked. Ling Han knew what he meant and nodded. I'll break the array. He walked around the mountain, and very soon he had an idea. How is it? Seeing him return, the four of them asked. Follow me. Ling Han was just about to start breaking the array, but just as he inserted the first array foundation, someone flew over and said sternly, What are you doing? What are you doing? Isn't it obvious? Yuan Tian snorted and said, Of course we're breaking the array. What else can we do? No. That person was very rude and unreasonable. The array master we invited hasn't arrived yet. You're not allowed to break the array. Fuck, what kind of reason is that? Ling Han and the others were all furious. You guys are too overbearing. Yuanzhong, what's going on? A middle-aged man walked over. The person from before hurriedly bowed and said, Ninth uncle, they want to break the array. Oh. The middle-aged man swept his gaze over. Our Chow family arrived first, so we'll be the first to break the array. You guys don't have any objections, right? Of course they didn't have any objections. Wu Yuan was furious and wanted to rush out to fight. His brain was the simplest, and he was too lazy to think too much. There was only one word for him, fight. Ling Han pulled him back and said calmly, Of course not. Hearing Ling Han say that, Yuan Tian and the others all shut their mouths. That's good. The middle-aged man nodded and then asked casually, You guys are from the Nine Sun Sacred Ground, right? Yes, Ling Han said again. Go. The middle-aged man waved his hand. Ling Han and the others retreated. Fuck, I'm so pissed off. This Chow family is too unreasonable. Yuan Tian couldn't help but curse. Ling Han shook his head. That person just now already wanted to kill us, but he guessed that we might be from the Nine Sun Sacred Ground and have devices on us that can connect to the Sacred Ground's network at any time. That's why he confirmed it and gave up on the idea. So ruthless. Huang Lingyun was shocked. The Life Core Realm. It's indeed possible to kill us instantly. Ling Han said slowly. This was also the reason why he retreated. Otherwise he would have to use the Heavenly Dao Fire. Yuan Tian and the others were all afraid. Although they might all become sect masters in the future, any Life Core Realm cultivator could easily take their lives now. Just now, they had gone one round in front of the gates of hell. Chapter 3852. 5 Caste Cauldrons fighting against threefold elixirs. Under normal circumstances, this would be a joke. There was no need for threefold elixirs. Just one Life Core Realm warrior could instantly destroy all 5 Caste Cauldrons, or even 50 or 500 Caste Cauldrons. However, the current situation was special. The threefold elixirs were seriously injured, and they only had 1% or less of their original strength left. This was different. Even so, there were still 2 people who had the upper hand in the threefold elixirs. Other than Ling Han, who could still resist, the other 2 groups were all Life Core Realm warriors who had the upper hand. Fortunately, Yuan Tian and the others could still hold on for the time being. A Life Core was after all a Life Core. Even if it was a dragon swimming in shallow waters, it was still incomparably fierce. Ling Han knew that he had to break the current situation. He shouted loudly, and activated the demon monkey fist. A terrifying aura circulated. He was like a young great emperor, with a kind of supreme elegance. What? His opponent turned pale with fright. It was just a cast cauldron. How could it make him feel so weak and invincible? Boom! At this moment, Ling Han had already punched out. Endless energy condensed on his fist and exploded at a single point. The middle-aged man in green wanted to dodge, but Ling Han's baleful aura hit him, causing him to be slightly stifled. He instantly missed the best opportunity to dodge. He had no choice but to return the attack. Bang! In the collision, the Life Core Realm warrior was instantly sent flying. His whole body spurted out a mouthful of blood. However, what was shocking was that he actually did not die. Damn, a Life Core Realm warrior was so hard to kill. Ling Han suppressed the boiling emotions in his chest, and once again charged over. The other two people from the Chao clan, Frost Dragon, cried out in alarm. They hurriedly wanted to rush over to help, but they were firmly entangled by Wu Qiyuan and Yuan Tian. However, they also paid a huge price for this, and the injuries on their bodies worsened. This crazy Life Core Realm warrior was too terrifying. On the other side, Ling Han had already caught up with the green-robed man. He punched out again, and the chaotic Polaris Thunder Pagoda also slashed out thunderbolts. He wanted to kill this person. Bang bang bang, the green-robed man parried, but he was hit by the demon monkey fist. This was an emperor technique. How could he not be injured? Moreover, he was bombarded by Ling Han so fiercely. Naturally, he was unable to endure it. Every time he received a punch, he would spit out a mouthful of blood, and there were even fragments of his internal organs. After receiving more than 100 punches, he finally reached the point of exhaustion. With a bang, his whole body suddenly exploded. Ling Han was expressionless. He turned around and stared at the remaining two life core cultivators. The two men from the Chao family felt their hair stand on end when they saw Ling Han's gaze. A life core stage clansman had already been brutally beaten to death by Ling Han. How could they be spared? No, they had to break out of the encirclement immediately. Their injuries were too severe, and they couldn't even suppress a few cast tripod realm martial artists. But as long as they could stabilize their injuries, and didn't need to fully recover, killing cast tripod realm martial artists would be a piece of cake. Go! The two of them were about to break out of the encirclement, but Wu Yuan and the other three also began to fight with their lives on the line. Ling Han let out a long roar and charged back. The two men from the Chao family were extremely regretful. If they had known earlier, they wouldn't have cared if they were from the Nine Sun Sacred Ground, and would have killed them the moment they encountered them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have such bad luck. It was obvious that they didn't have any intention to reflect on their actions. Ling Han executed the three styles of the war god again. This was a sacred art. Even though it wasn't the most exquisite ultimate move, after 3 consecutive moves, the Life Core stage clansman from the Chao family was naturally severely injured, and his combat strength dropped by a few notches. Right now, it was Ling Han fighting alone again, while Wu Yuan, Yuan Tian, and the other 2 Life Core stage clansmen from the Chao family were fighting together. The scales of victory were completely tilted towards Ling Han's side. Be it Ling Han or Wu Yuan, and the other 3 Life Core stage clansmen, they all had the upper hand. Come, let's see who can finish the battle first, Ling Han said. All right. Wu Yuan and the other 3 Life Core stage clansmen responded. Could it be that the 4 of them were still inferior to Ling Han? Kill, kill, kill. The 2 men from the Chao family were bursting with anger. They were at the Life Core stage, but they were actually reduced to props for the cast tripod realm. How could they endure this? The 2 Life Core stage clansmen released their own aura presence to suppress Jiang Yi on the mental aspect. As expected, Wu Yuan and the other 3 Life Core stage clansmen were instantly affected, and their attacks were obviously much weaker. However, Ling Han wasn't affected at all, and he was still attacking ferociously. His baleful aura was even able to slightly affect the Life Core stage clansmen. The 2 Life Core stage clansmen gritted their teeth. Was there really no other way? The crucial point was that they had already exhausted all their treasures and methods when they were fighting their way out of the array. Even if they wanted to risk their lives, They didn't have any trump cards to reveal. Were they really going to die in the hands of a few cast tripod realm experts? They were unwilling. Let's go all out. The two life core stage experts roared with rage and used all their strength to break through. They completely ignored the attacks and focused on breaking through. Ah! Ling Han's opponent let out a miserable cry and fell to the ground with a bang. Ling Han's strength wasn't suppressed by the aura presence of the life core stage, and he actually dared to ignore Ling Han's attack. Wasn't he courting death? However, the other person from the Chao family finally killed his way out. He turned back to look at his two companions on the ground, and then swept his gaze across Ling Han and the other 4 life core stage clansmen. He remembered all 5 of them, and once his injuries were healed, he would definitely kill his way back and take their lives. He then turned his head and was about to use all his strength to run. But in an instant, he broke out in cold sweat like rain, because in front of him, there was actually a person standing. Ling Han. How was this possible? How could this guy's speed be so fast? Ling Han didn't make a sound and just punched out violently. That life core stage clansman hurriedly parried. Bang! He only received 1 punch, but he was forced to retreat repeatedly. This person was the one who fought with Ling Han at the beginning. He had already been severely injured by the Primal Chaos Polaris Thunder Pagoda, and now that he was fighting with Ling Han head-on, how could he possibly be a match for him? After a dozen consecutive punches, he was forcefully blown apart. Haha, Ling Han, we won. Yuan Tian laughed and pointed at the second life core stage clansman from the Chao family, who had already been killed by the 4 of them. He had been knocked down by Ling Han, and Yuan Tian, and the other 3 had taken the opportunity to attack and take his life. Ling Han smiled. Naturally, he would not say anything about their actions of stealing an opportunity, using their cauldron forging stage cultivation to face off against life core stage clansmen. He was extremely happy that none of the 4 of them had fallen behind. Naturally, the friendship between them deepened a notch. Come, let's plunder. They had searched the corpses of the 3 life core stage clansmen, but the treasures on their bodies had all been used up in the array formation. Perhaps they still had some savings, but they were definitely on the star web. Now, I'm starting to hate the star web. Yuan Tian sighed. I feel the same. The others also nodded. They had painstakingly killed 3 life core stage clansmen, but their harvest was only a few Dao stones. How could this not make them depressed? Furthermore, apart from Ling Han, Wu Qiyuan, and the other 3 had all suffered serious injuries. Let's recover first, and then we'll enter the cave abode, Ling Han said. Wu Qiyuan and the other 3 did not try to be brave. They took the healing medicinal pills and began to recover. Half a day later, they leaped up one by one. Although they had not recovered to their peak condition, their movements were no longer affected. They had to hurry, or else more and more people would come. Ling Han was just about to start breaking the array formation. Several figures streaked across the sky. More people had come. Chapter 3853. Ling Han stopped, only to see that those figures had directly descended and were not far from them. There were a total of 5 people, 3 men and 2 women, and Ling Han's eyes were first attracted by a man. It wasn't that he was shockingly handsome, but that his aura was too strong. He was obviously a cast cauldron, but when he stood there, he was like a black hole, attracting all eyes and attention. He was indeed quite handsome, with a dignified appearance and sharp facial features. His hair was black and shiny, as if every strand was a work of art that was exquisitely carved. Then Ling Han's eyes turned to a woman. Beautiful, stunningly beautiful. Ling Han had to admit that even the Empress and Hunyo couldn't gain the upper hand in front of her. However, he soon had another feeling: emptiness. This woman was obviously standing there, but it was like air, making it impossible to lock onto her. If she wasn't born with a divine body, then she cultivated some special cultivation technique. These people were. When Ling Han swept his eyes over the 2 men, he immediately determined the identity of these people. Lu Qi Song Lan. Because he saw Cha Hu and Cheng Bao. Needless to say, The man surrounded by them must be Lu Qi. And who could make Lu Qi's companion be? Song Lan, an absolute beauty ranked 9th on the absolute beauty ranking. Indeed, her beauty was unparalleled and wonderful. Lu Qi swept a glance over Ling Han, but did not say anything. However, Cheng Bao immediately stepped out and shouted, "Ling Han, you've seen the master. Why haven't you paid your respects?" This was an absolute condescension, and even a lackey was so arrogant. Ling Han smiled and strode forward. Everyone thought that Ling Han admitted defeat. After all, Lu Qi was a super expert ranked 19th on the star web. And in theory, there were only 18 people who could defeat him in the caste tripod realm. With the vastness of the universe, no one would think that it was inappropriate even if he was 100 times more arrogant. Although Wu Qiyuan, Yuan Tian, and the other two felt extremely unhappy, they knew that this was Ling Han's best choice. If they didn't lower their heads now, they would only be asking for trouble. Lu Qi said arrogantly with a hint of disdain on the corner of his mouth. What number one? You have no backbone at all." Ling Han had already arrived. He suddenly stretched out his hand, and with an extremely fast speed, he grabbed Song Lan's slender jade-like hand. This was really too sudden. There was absolutely no one who would have thought that Ling Han would actually be so bold. Even Song Lan herself was dumbfounded. A pair of beautiful eyes looked towards Ling Han, and there was 70% surprise and 30% shyness. But very soon, her beautiful face flushed red, and she hurriedly tried to withdraw her hand. How could Ling Han be willing to let go? "Many thanks to Miss Song for speaking up for me," he said. "I really can't thank you enough. Miss Song is truly worthy of being called the most beautiful woman in the world. You're so beautiful that you're practically bubbling." In short, he grabbed Song Lan's hand to express his gratitude. As one of the top 10 beauties, Song Lan was naturally a smooth and slick public figure. She had seen all kinds of things in the world, but which man would be so daring as to grab her jade-like hand in public? How thick-skinned was he? She tried to pull back, but Ling Han was also holding her hand tightly. Song Lan couldn't pull back at all, but in order to maintain the demeanor of a goddess and fairy, she couldn't get angry. After all, Ling Han was expressing his gratitude to her. She really wanted to use a celestial spell to kill Ling Han, but she had to maintain a smile on her face, which made her extremely depressed. But the person who was the most furious here was definitely Lu Qi. Although he had been pursuing Song Lan, he had never had any physical contact with her. He looked at Song Lan's jade-like hand falling into Ling Han's claws. His heart was in turmoil. His face first turned green, then black, and finally, it turned into a heaven-burning murderous intent. "You're courting death," he said word by word. His voice was so cold that it made people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Wu Qiyuan and the other three were also stunned. They thought that Ling Han was going to admit defeat, but this guy was really daring. Not only did he not admit defeat, he even slapped Lu Qi. No, this was 100 times worse than a slap. But Lu Qi was clearly enraged, and Song Lan wouldn't speak up for Ling Han. So how could Ling Han resolve Lu Qi's anger? Ling Han finally pulled back his hand. "Tsk, it felt so good. No wonder she was the 9th beauty in the universe." He coughed, looked at Lu Qi, and said seriously, "Who are you again?" Lu Qi had already suffered 10,000 points of damage, and this was definitely a critical hit. "Die!" He attacked and blasted at Ling Han. Ling Han clenched his fist and counterattacked. Pung! He instantly felt an irresistible force surge over and send him flying. Then, it was as if every bone in his body was about to break, and a few of his muscles had already been torn apart, with fresh blood seeping out. As expected of an 8 cauldron, it crushed him by 3 small realms. This was not a fake like Shuezhan, but obtained through hard work and bitter cultivation. It required great comprehension, great wisdom, and great perseverance. Therefore, an 8 cauldron cultivator's combat ability far surpassed that of a beast of the same level. Take Ling Han for example. He was only a 5 cauldron cultivator, but he could easily slaughter an 8 cauldron cultivator. If Lu Qi's strength was real, it should be equivalent to a 9 cauldron cultivator, or even the peak of 9 cauldron cultivator. Unbeatable. Lu Qi laughed coldly and attacked again. Ling Han used his eye technique and found an opening in his opponent's defense, dodging the attack. Then, he opened his mouth, and the gunmetal sword shot out toward Lu Qi. Lu Qi did not dare to ignore it. He struck out with his palm. Bang! The golden sword was shattered, but a wound appeared on his palm, and fresh blood seeped out. Seeing this scene, Cheng Bao and Cha Hu were both shocked. There was actually someone in the cast tripod realm who could injure their master. He wasn't one of the top 18 in the Star Web, but rather an unknown minor character. In the Star Web, Ling Han was indeed a nobody. It was too unbelievable. Lu Qi raised his hand to take a look, and the corner of his mouth revealed a smile. In the same age group, you are the first person to truly injure me. He might have lost in the Star Web ranking tournament, but that was a battle between psychokinesis bodies, and it was impossible for his physical body to be injured. Ling Han smiled faintly. Then you have to get used to it. There will be plenty of opportunities for you to get beaten up in the future. Lu Qi's face darkened. He seemed to be praising Ling Han, but in fact, he was proclaiming his own strength. Insolent words. You don't know what's good for you. He attacked again. This time he used some kind of immortal art. As he opened and closed his palms, there was an immeasurable amount of immortal light, and every ray of it had boundless power. Ling Han's starlight screen took the hit head-on, and it was instantly shattered. It was not that the starlight screen was not powerful enough, but that it was at a disadvantage in terms of cultivation level. After all, Ling Han was only at the 5 cauldron realm. He used so close, yet worlds apart, and his figure was fleeting. Even Lu Qi could not catch him. Interesting, Lu Qi said coldly. Thousand silk net. He shouted softly, and the immeasurable amount of immortal light instantly intertwined and turned into a huge net. Chapter 3854. This net surrounded them, sealing off all possible escape routes. Lu Qi also charged over, his eyes sharp and his aura terrifying. His killing intent had been aroused, and he wanted to blast Ling Han into pieces. How dare you touch the woman he likes? Only death awaited him. No one could save this bastard. Ling Han sighed. There was a difference of 3 minor realms, and Lu Qi was a genius that was ranked 19th on the Star Web. His combat strength was truly too strong. Wang the murderous aura blasted out. So what if Lu Qi was a genius? His mind was instantly seized, and he fell into a temporary state of confusion. Ling Han retreated until the net disappeared, due to the exhaustion of energy. Lu Qi woke up, and her expression turned serious. I didn't expect you to have a telekinesis artifact. There were telekinesis artifacts like the heavenly rune jade that could cause physical damage, but there were also artifacts that could directly affect one's divine soul, and even destroy one's consciousness. He absolutely did not believe that Ling Han had used some kind of secret technique to affect him, because he believed that with the strength of his divine sense, no one in the same realm could break it. Ling Han didn't try to defend himself. It was up to Lu Qi what he thought. Firstly, it was meaningless. Secondly, would someone as arrogant as Lu Qi believe him? He activated so close, yet worlds apart and counterattacked. Lu Qi was calm and composed. His advantage was too obvious. His palms struck out casually, and he was invincible. However, as soon as Ling Han's murderous aura rushed out, he would be hit no matter what. Although it was only for a short moment, it completely messed up his attack rhythm, and he was unable to turn his advantage into victory. After dozens of moves, Lu Qi felt like he couldn't hold it anymore. He had 8 cauldrons, while Ling Han only had 5 cauldrons. However, he still could not take down Ling Han. One had to know that a cauldron's difference in cultivation meant that one's strength should be completely suppressed. This was a situation that he could not accept. If news of this got out, he would definitely be disgraced, and people would question if he was ranked 19th in the Star Web. He roared in fury. Hong! The sound of thunder rang out from within his body, and his entire body suddenly grew infinitely larger. In the blink of an eye, he transformed from an ordinary person into a mountainous giant. Boom! His palm pressed down, truly covering the sky with one hand. How can you block an attack like that? Pung, the palm slammed down, and the entire ground trembled as if an earthquake had occurred. Lu Qi shook his body and returned to his normal size. This was not a secret technique, but a divine ability that he had mastered. The Herculean diamond body was one of the strongest innate divine bodies. With this attack, Ling Han should be blasted into dregs. However, a pagoda floated up and down, emitting streams of chaotic qi. One could vaguely see a person standing proudly inside. Ling Han Lu Qi's expression changed. Even this didn't kill Ling Han. One had to know that the Herculean Vajra body was too powerful. It was so powerful that even he found it difficult to control it. He could only use it 2 to 3 times in a short period of time. However, looking at Ling Han's appearance, he was clearly not injured at all. To hell with it, he quickly fixed his eyes on the Primal Chaos Extreme Thunder Pagoda. His intuition made him believe that the reason Ling Han was able to dodge his explosive attack was entirely because of this treasure. The more he looked, the more he realized that this treasure was extraordinary. It made him covet it intensely and want to take it for himself. He activated his innate divine body again, and his body enlarged rapidly. He then grabbed at Ling Han with his palm. What did having a big body mean? Great strength. For example, ants. Even if they were the strongest ants in the colony, if they met a human, even if it was just a child, they could easily crush the strongest ant. Therefore, after Lu Qi activated his innate divine body, his strength skyrocketed and was comparable to the early stage of the life core realm. He grabbed Ling Han, but the Primal Chaos Extreme Thunder Pagoda emitted chaotic qi, which formed a powerful defense that protected Ling Han within. Break! Lu Qi roared, his voice loud and clear like thunder. He clenched his right hand tightly, wanting to crush the chaotic qi, and then crush Ling Han. This was not impossible. Although the Primal Chaos Extreme Thunder Pagoda was a future emperor weapon, and could be said to be the strongest artifact in the cast tripod realm, it was only limited to the cast tripod realm. The key was that Lu Qi was now at the life core realm, although he could only match the weakest life core realm. A life core realm against a cast tripod realm. This was a crushing defeat. Therefore, the chaotic qi rapidly broke. Although the Primal Chaos Extreme Thunder Pagoda was still falling continuously, it could not compare to the speed of destruction. At this moment, the light of thunder boiled. Lu Qi let out a painful groan and quickly let go. His current strength was comparable to the life core realm, but it did not mean that his defense was the same. The Primal Chaos Extreme Thunder Pagoda's counterattack was too fierce. Xiao, Ling Han, and the Primal Chaos Extreme Thunder Pagoda fell together. But in the next moment, he was already flying on his artifact, launching a counterattack against Lu Qi. The great overarching heaven-treasured skill was activated, dazzling brilliance, and a large number of symbols flowed. After Lu Qi barely withstood a few moves, his figure shrunk. He could not maintain this state for a long time. He frowned. The power of this artifact was beyond his expectations. It could actually barely match the life core realm. Damn it! If only his innate divine body could be activated for a while longer. Ling Han's heart also palpitated. This Lu Qi was really powerful. After activating his innate divine body, he could actually display the battle prowess of the life core realm. He almost broke through the defense of the Primal Chaos Extreme Thunder Pagoda, and almost forced out his heavenly Tao fire. This top-notch innate divine body was too terrifying. That was what he thought, but he still attacked without hesitation. He activated the great overarching heaven-treasured skill, and continued to attack wildly. He had just used the 3 styles of the War God, and the Demon Monkey Fist, and it would still take a long time before he could activate them again. Therefore, he could only use the great treasure heaven-treasured skill. Lu Qi met him head-on. He also frequently used his techniques, wanting to take down Ling Han. Unfortunately, his attacks could only barely break through the chaotic qi. Not to mention the endless chaotic qi falling from the Primal Chaos Extreme Thunder Pagoda. There was also a layer of starlight protection inside. It was simply wishful thinking to want to hurt Ling Han. After activating the Primal Chaos Extreme Thunder Pagoda, those who wanted to pose a threat to Ling Han had to be those monsters ranked in the top 10 of the star web, and had cultivated the 9 cauldrons. Fight, fight, fight. Ling Han only needed to attack, and did not need to defend. This naturally gave him an advantage. After a few hundred moves, Lu Qi suddenly seemed to be unable to hold on. He let out an angry roar and retreated. He could not fight anymore. Otherwise he would only be defeated. If you have the ability, then fight with me after taking away your treasured artifacts, he provoked. Ling Han smiled faintly. All right, if you destroy your 3 celestial cauldrons, I won't use my artifact. Go. Lu Qi was so angry that his nose almost became crooked. It was not easy for him to cultivate to the 8 cauldrons. Even a genius like him could not guarantee that he could reach the height of the 8 cauldrons again. This was because from the 6 cauldrons onwards, every cauldron required talent, luck, and opportunity. We are all disciples of the same sect. We will see each other frequently. Let's enter the cave abode first, Song Lan advised. She glanced at Ling Han with a frosty gaze. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.